rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like someone out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you just after 6 o'clock on Saturday, April the 19th. I'm David Bull. A very warm welcome to you wherever you are watching. Of course, we're celebrating Easter. Today is Holy Saturday, and I have great news for you this morning. It's National Cat Lady Day today. Yes, that's right. It's a day that celebrates the bond between humans and felines, especially women. A cat lady's reputation has gone a long way since medieval Europe. Well, a woman's love of a cat back in medieval Europe was met with suspicion and disdain.
Smelly cat, what are they feeding you? Smelly cat, it's not your fault.
Wow, that really is something. Wow. It's Husband Appreciation Day today. That's right. It's a day to celebrate the man in your life. Now, I also looked this up. It's also Humorous Day today, and you can make of that what It's National Garlic Day today. Hooray! It's a day paying homage to the pungent bulb that adds flavour and depth to countless dishes around the world. So happy Garlic Day, Stinky Pants.
Garlic, so pungent and so kicking. Garlic, great with beef or fish or chicken, gets me in the mood. Amore for some
Garlic gets you in the mood. Right, let's move on to this morning's fascinating fact, shall we?
Today's fascinating facts.
Now, I've got some corkers for you today, because on this day in 1587, the English naval commander Sir Francis Drake sailed a small number of ships into Cadiz harbour and sank most of the fleet, the Spanish fleet. The incident became known as the singeing of the King of Spain's beard. I learnt about that in school. On this day in 1770, explorer Captain James Cook sighted the eastern coast of what is now Australia. He spent his boyhood years at Great Ayton in North Yorkshire. He attended school there, which is now a museum, and there is a statue of the young James Cook on the village green. On this day in 1775, it was the start of the American War of Independence against Britain, when fighting began at Lexington and Concord. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
Oh, we're tuning in for the weekend show with David and Clark. The weekend has begun. Hey.
Wow, they get more insane every hour. A very good morning to you. It's Weekend Breakfast, 5 minutes past 6 on Saturday, April the 19th. We've given away the clue in that song because I'm joined by the very lovely Claire Muldoon, who has hot-footed it here on Holy Saturday to be with me.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm all right, thank you very much.
I had to get my way out the door from all those cats.
You don't like cats?
Hate them.
Oh, right, OK.
I've
That's
got
a
the
short
devil in
conversation. What about garlic?
I love garlic.
Oh, do you?
I really love garlic.
So garlic is known as Allium sativum. It was first described in medical botany in 1793. It's a species of bulbous flowering plants in the genus, as I said, of Allium. Its close relatives are the onion, shallot, leek and chives. Welsh onion, also the Chinese onion. Where is it native to?
What, garlic? France, surely.
Apparently Central and South Asia. It goes all the way from the Black Sea through
But you
to the...
being a doctor would know the great benefits, the health benefits of
I'm coming on
garlic.
to that, and actually I do, if I'm not very well, I will have garlic or onions or both.
Yeah.
And anecdotally, it does seem to repel various viruses, or at least to reduce the course of...
Absolutely fantastic.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't know if I have hard data on that.
ginger and turmeric.
Yes, ginger, turmeric, all those things. Yum, I'm hungry already. It's been used for thousands of years as a seasoning and culinary ingredient, also traditional and medicinal remedy. Actually, when you look back, it's been used by the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Chinese. The majority of garlic apparently comes from China.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And we're going to be talking about China later.
China.
It grows from China. It grows from a bulb with a tall, erect flowering stem that reaches 1
to say that,
metre. 1 metre!
Well, it wasn't the 1 metre I was referring to.
No, I know. It's very early. The leaf blade is flat, linear, solid, and approximately 1.5 to 2.5 centimetres wide with an acute apex. The bulb has a strong odour and typically made of 10 to 20 cloves.
Well,
now,
what?
Well, I was going to say, because the garlic is also known as the stinking rose. Because it looks like a rose, it just smells. And in fact, there was, and I don't know if there still is, a restaurant in London that's a garlic restaurant called
I didn't know that.
The Stinking Rose.
I didn't know that. Well, of course,
and everything is cooked in garlic.
Are cooking a lovely big Sunday roast tomorrow, traditionally lamb, being Easter Sunday. Myriad amount of garlic in it.
Lovely.
And anchovies, and it's just absolutely delicious.
Anchovies?
Yeah.
Illegal.
Oh, no.
Illegal.
Oh, no,
what,
delicious.
in a roast?
Oh, yeah, you roll them up, slit the lamb, stuff them in with the rosemary and the garlic.
Why would you put fish in your lamb?
Well, you can hardly call an anchovy a fish.
It's a fish.
Really. Well, yeah, it is. But
it's a salty little fish.
It's delicious, though.
In a lamb? OK. Now, apparently, the reason we were talking about the medicinal properties of garlic, it contains allicin, ajoine, dial polysulfides, vinyl dithins, S-allyl-cysteine, enzymes, saponins, flavonoids, and various other chemicals as well. And they're released, those phytochemicals, when you chop, chew or crush the garlic.
Is that a natural antibiotic?
No, it's not an antibiotic, but it does seem to have antiviral properties.
Okay.
And that's why, and it's an old wives' tale that you need to...
But it works.
But I do think it works. Talking of good news, though, this is really good news.
Tell me.
Well, VE Day. This was announced last night. Labour has announced that pubs will stay open later to celebrate the 80th anniversary of VE Day.
Fantastic.
The change is going to allow all pubs to remain open until 1 o'clock. Many pubs actually do have a licence to stay open until 1 a.m, but there are lots of pubs, particularly in rural communities, that don't have that. I think this is great. People can celebrate and actually pause and reflect as to the significance of VE Day and the numbers of people who laid down their lives so that we have the freedom that we do in this country. The licensing hours have been altered before for the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. This is controversial.
What?
Also for the wedding of Harry and Meghan. Also, the 2024 Euros final. I wondered, there was a push, wasn't there, to have a bank holiday for VE Day?
Yeah.
I think there should have been. So now, I wonder whether we should have had one. The government turned it down.
Have we not
and they
got
said,
enough bank holidays?
No, we don't. When you look actually at Europe, we only have 8 bank holidays. Scotland has 9 or 10, Northern Ireland 10, and Europe, they have 10 to 16.
Wow.
But they're always asleep, aren't they? You know? I can't say that. But I mean, I don't know.
You just did.
Well, I did say that. Do you think that actually it does? I mean, it's so significant in terms of world history.
I'd say.
Shouldn't we have had a bank holiday?
I'd say it's even more significant now because the veterans, this will be their last hurrah, really, because they're all of an age when the next celebration will come. They won't be here to witness it, really. Well, here on Earth, at least. Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm... Well, as a freelancer, if you don't work, you normally bank holidays, then you don't get paid. But I think it's really good, actually, to extend the bank holiday arm to, you know, to everyone, really, as long as they realise the importance of it and why the bank holiday
and not just
has been
sit in the
granted.
pub and drink lots.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister has said, as we mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day, the whole country should come together to remember the incredible sacrifices made by the wartime generation.
I can't believe Starmer said that.
No, yes.
Really?
And also, if you do you remember, of course,
did you hear him say
the same day, do you remember when he had a poppy on and then he was doing another interview and the poppies magically disappeared? He allegedly, this is what, this is the press statement from Downing Street. We should celebrate the peace and freedom they secured for us all. I would agree. Now, commemorations will start on Bank Holiday Monday. The Cenotaph is going to be dressed in Union flags. There's going to be a military procession from Whitehall to Buckingham Palace, and RAF fly past as well over London. On Thursday, the 8th of May, the day before my birthday, a day of celebrations across the country will culminate in a party at London's Horse Guards Parade. It's going to be televised live on BBC One. More than 10,000 members of the public attending the event to see performances by stars from the stage and screen. I'm taking it as a birthday present.
Are you?
Yeah.
All for you. It's all about you, isn't it?
Always.
All about you, David.
Now, do stop it. But I do think a bank holiday would have been nice.
Yeah.
It would have been a really nice
But we've already got one on the 5th of May.
All right. I just thought it was a nice idea.
Before your birthday as well.
Well, it's, you know, it's the lead up to the... That's the lead up. I was trying... So, actually, my birthday falls on the Friday.
As if we needed to know.
No, but I'm just telling you this because it means that, because it falls on a Friday, I go to bed at 6 o'clock on a Friday. So I then thought, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not on my birthday. So I don't think I'm going to be here, Dean, on... Another weekend off. You can talk. Right, let's look at the front pages this morning. I think we've got a little out of control. This is really interesting. This is the front page of the Times. Now, as we know, when Labour came to power, they removed the Rwanda policy overnight. Yeah. And actually, it was beginning to show signs that it was working. So we saw migrants moving as a deterrent. So we were starting to see transition and movement of migrants. Now, Labour, I think it's fair to say, hasn't a clue what it's doing in terms of trying to remove... I think that's a fair comment. And it doesn't know what to do. But this is interesting because maybe they have done something clever. The headline is, UN refugee body backs return hubs for migrants. Yeah. Labour's plans to deport rejected asylum seekers to return hubs abroad has won the endorsement of the United Nations Refugee Agency in a decision which has been described as game-changing. Now, last month, Yvette Cooper, actually, she's the Home Secretary, she discussed the prospect of paying countries in the Balkans to take Britain's, and there is nuance here, failed asylum seekers at a meeting with the head of the UNHCR. So that was the meeting that they had. The UNHCR now is on side and said, OK, you can have return hubs. And in many ways, that may well prove to be the most pivotal decision because it then allows the UK government to say, we have endorsement from the UNHCR and therefore we can now proceed. But I do think we're reinventing the wheel.
Well, I think we're going further than that, actually, to be honest with you, because do you think for 1 minute that any failed asylum seeker will stay put? Do you think, under any circumstances, that Border Force, police, or any of the other bodies that can deal with refugees will be able to collect them, get them, catch them, and then take them safely off? Because Albania was one of the countries mooted to have them. Yeah,
yes, absolutely. And of course, we have a returns agreement with Albania.
I think it's absolutely all rhetoric.
Interesting. Now, so the UNHCR, this is this morning, is setting out in a document the need for effective return systems and the role of return hubs. I actually think they're starting to catch up with the sentiment across Europe. You're seeing countries, we'll talk about Germany, for example, who are saying, actually, people who've lodged their asylum claim in Greece can jolly well go back to Greece.
Yes.
And they've come down on the side of Germany, or the federal court has come down on the side of Germany. We're seeing Meloni, of course, in Italy. She's having a very strong position on immigration. Maybe, just maybe, the UK government is catching up.
Well, you would perhaps think it, and one can only hope. But do you know what else is round the corner? Local elections. Do we think this is just spin to compete with the likes of Reform, who have managed to field a candidate for every single council seat in the country? I mean, these are strong words. We've never heard this from
I have to be very careful. We're in Purda, so I can't make any overt political comment. What I can say is it is interesting timing that some of the hotels for asylum seekers and illegal migrants are closing in certain geographical areas. Which may play into this. Was that careful enough?
Yeah, very.
Yeah. It's interesting, this, just in terms of this, what happens next. Let me just bring you the latest numbers in terms of illegal migration. We're now, where are we now? What is today's date?
The 19th
of April. Already, 9,099 people have come illegally to this country this year in 162 boats. Let me just put that into some sort of perspective. That is 45% more than last year, 81% more than 2023. This month alone, in 19 days, 2,246. They have totally lost control, haven't they?
And interestingly as well, there's no women and children in those statistics.
Funny that.
They're all young men under the age of 40.
Yeah.
Why are they fleeing a country? Surely, at that age, they should be staying put to fight against any regime that they think is unlawful or dangerous.
I mean, look, they're economic migrants, aren't they? And actually, and we'll talk...
They're not asylum seekers then, in my view.
No, I'd agree. I'd agree. Let me just bring you up to speed.
We're full.
I spoke about this yesterday, actually, but it's pertinent because this ruling in Germany is a real boost for Friedrich Merz. He's the incoming German Chancellor. Essentially, Germany opened their borders under Angela Merkel and said, oh, you can come into Germany. So they've accepted huge numbers, and it has changed the fabric of Germany. Many people are very cross about this. So the ruling that's come from the Federal Administrative Court in Leipzig says that actually those asylum seekers who entered the EU via Greece, and they were granted asylum in Greece, they then didn't like Greece. So they moved and they lodged another asylum application in Germany. Now, the German authorities are now saying, and what the Federal Administrative Court has said is actually Greece is quite enough for you because you've got bed, you've got water, you've got some bread. And they have decreed that that is enough, and now they're planning to send them back to Greece. That is a powerful message, I think.
It is a powerful message. It's also a powerful message to the slave trade, aka people... The
people smugglers.
Absolutely. You know, they are trading off lives. They are being paid by these people, by these young men, on the basis that they're going to reach a country that they can then claim asylum in. It's wrong.
It is wrong. A senior CDU MP, that's a political party in Germany, says, look, the German capacity for refugees is exhausted. We've taken in millions of people from Syria, Afghanistan and Ukraine. So we often think that the illegal migration problem is our problem. It's not. But this also then begs the question about if they're seeking asylum, as they will, because geographically you will go to Greece, say, you then move to Germany, you don't like Germany. The reason they come here is because we give them five-star hotels and then we hotel them and we give them food and all the rest of it. Why would you go anywhere else?
Exactly.
You wouldn't.
Well, the difficulty is, in all of the big cities in this country, it's been absolutely ruined, not only by mass immigration, but by people not being able to assimilate to a way of life that is expected. There is no when in Rome when you come here, is it?
They don't bother to learn the language.
No.
There's no integration at
No.
all. And I've mentioned this before. When I've been in cities, whether it's Liverpool or Boston, I see swathes of young men who are clearly asylum
Glasgow as
seekers. Glasgow, or any kind of city or large town, and you see them hanging around in the town centres. And of course, many people don't feel safe as a result. And then you're seeing trade on the local high street dropping and so on. This is also related. This is the front page of the Daily Express this morning. Easter reality for migrants at the cathedral. Migrants are camping outside one of Britain's most famous landmarks as the small boat crisis intensifies.
That's the head of my church. Westminster Cathedral.
Yes, of course. Yes, Catholic Church.
Yeah.
50 people, mainly from Eritrea, are sleeping rough over Easter on the steps of Westminster Cathedral. Witnesses have said the number are growing over the last 3 months from 5 to 10 to dozens in recent days. Now, they're being moved off in the morning by security officers. They then pack up their belongings, stick them under some stairs, and then when night falls, they go back onto the steps of Westminster Cathedral.
Given today's date, given the feast that we're about to share and delight in, this is one of the biggest magisterial events in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And for our church to be swathed in migrants like this is actually, it's not fair. It really isn't fair to witness that. It's not fair in the people who are sleeping rough either, okay, because they don't have anywhere to go. But you have to ask yourself, why are they coming now? Why are they presenting at a time where we celebrate the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ?
Yeah. Now, Westminster has replied, saying rough sleeping is complex. We work tirelessly with the teams and the voluntary sector to provide much support as possible to keep people off the streets to places of safety. Now, you could argue that Westminster Cathedral also has a Christian duty to look after those who are less fortunate. But I would have thought that actually what they need to do somehow is to scoop them off the steps and provide safety, security and shelter.
Which there is. There is loads and loads of shelter accommodation for the homeless that a lot of Catholic charities do help with. So this, I don't understand why this has become such a photo opportunity at this time of year.
No, it's fascinating. Claire?
I think they know what they're doing.
Of course they do. Of course they do. And of course this is high profile, and it means they're going to be on the steps of Westminster Cathedral during Easter, and of course all cameras will be pointed towards that cathedral. So just to bring you those numbers again, this year 9,099 in 162 boats, 45% more than last year, 81% more than 2023. This month alone 2,246. Look, this brings me to the question, which is, the government, the former government said they were going to smash the boats, stop the boats, I think was their slogan. Keir Starmer keeps saying we're going to smash the gangs. Well, you're not smashing the gangs, are you? And so the question I have for you this morning, why do politicians never listen to the public? It's quite a straightforward question. It's quite difficult to answer. 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged at the national rate. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. Also, second question for you. VE Day. As Claire says, this is the last final hurrah for many of those people who took part in VE Day. It's a moment of national significance. I don't think many children know enough about VE Day. It has afforded us our liberty and freedom in this country. So should we have a bank holiday to celebrate VE Day? The number once again, 0344 499 1000. Now, after the break, I want to talk about China. We have spoken repeatedly about the security threat that China poses to this country. We talked about British Steel and Jinjai. We talked about the fact the government has had to step in. Well, Rachel Reeves today, it's foolish to cut ties with China. We'll talk about that after this break. Also, we're going to be talking about why electric cars threaten the national security. This is according to the defence chiefs. Also, Donald Trump says the US will pass on Ukraine peace talks if there is no progress soon. That's all still to come. This is Talk. Good morning.
Labour now are in turmoil and very split on this, whether or not to back this sort of radical unpeddling of some of the sort of, more pernicious things that have been put into place. Do you have any sympathy with the Labour Party over this?
Well, I think we need to hear some leadership from Keir Starmer on this. It's one thing to say we'll note the judgment, but what is the government, what is the Labour Party in power going to actually do about this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk. I'm David Bull, and this is Weekend Breakfast. I'm joined by the lovely Claire Muldoon this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Lots of messages already coming in, actually.
Really?
Dale Walton says, David, immigrants will want Immigration Day next. Of course, I'm asking, should we have a bank holiday for VE Day? This one from Sean Cooper. The return hubs idea won't work because Labour and the Home Office accept almost every asylum application, no matter how spurious. That's Sean in Bridlington. Thank you for that. You said it was totally wrong for them to be camped outside Westminster Cathedral, and Sharon Miller says, Claire, I completely agree with you. It is totally wrong. Dean?
They wouldn't camp outside a mosque, would they?
Oh, that's an interesting point. Good morning, David and Claire. This is Dean in Dagenham, sunny Dagenham. These illegals, both here and in the EU, are wanted here by the globalist leaders of said places for some reason I do not know. But now with the Trump effect coming into action, I think those leaders are scared of losing their place on the gravy train. They see the tide is turning and trying to save themselves. The globalists are panicking. I do think it's interesting that you're seeing changes in the European Union. You're seeing the fragmentation of those countries, particularly with the rise of right-of-centre parties like Meloni, for example. She sat down with Donald Trump, didn't she? They look like new best friends. But then you've got Germany, which is really the powerhouse of the European Union, also saying, hang on a minute, we need to deal with immigration. Is this kind of the apex of where we are? Do you think this is the moment that actually Europe gets its act together?
I absolutely think so. I mean, they prevented Turkey from joining the EU and the whole Erdogan regime. And look what's happening. The borders in Belarus and Turkey are bulging, and they've got a very, very strong realisation that immigration is wrong for themselves. And yet Poland now, a lot of the Polish people are saying, look, we're sick of this. We do not want this on our soil. We're becoming not safe. Our borders are bulging as well, you know, and it's just ridiculous. So across Europe, you're seeing this anti-globalisation, realisation that, you know, it's not a panacea for all. It doesn't work for all, and the loss of tradition, the loss of community, the loss of, you know, spirit. You know, and I want to keep away from the word indigenous, but you know, traditions, family to family, generation to generation, has been slipping away. We've all become so homogenised, so sterilised, that I think people are now starting to say, look, stop. We don't want this anymore.
I don't think they're starting. I think they've been saying it for a very long time. But
they're
I think
not being listened to.
And that's the question. Why don't politicians listen? In the election, people said very clearly, cost of living, immigration, all of these things really high on the priority list. The government isn't listening. The former government didn't listen. And I'm telling you, you are going to see a massive change in the way that people act.
I hope so.
As a result. I mean, also, and this leads really nicely to the front page of the Daily Telegraph this morning. This is Rachel Reeves. We spent a lot of time talking about China. China is a threat to our national security. We have heard that repeatedly from national security sources. And yet Rachel Reeves, I mean, I nearly fell over this morning. Rachel Reeves says it would be foolish, very foolish, for Britain to disengage with China in a rejection of Donald Trump's efforts to isolate Beijing. She says we need to have a deeper partnership with China. What? rather than erecting new barriers. She also backs the Chinese fast fashion company. This is Shein.
Yeah.
In fact, I have never bought anything from Shein, but I know people who have.
Yeah.
Floating on the London stock market, saying she'll be happy to ride in Chinese-made electric vehicles despite spying fears. Well, Rachel, I've got news for you, because yesterday there was another story saying, and this came from the Defence Science and Laboratory Technology Laboratory, which is a government assessment, which said, Rachel Reeves says, I will be happy to be in a Chinese-made electric vehicle. Yeah. Electric cars pose a potential threat to national security because they're vulnerable to Chinese spying. This is from an official defence assessment by the government spy lab. So they say that because all the government cars, they're trying to get them to be electric, they say that actually the fears of Chinese spying is so high that the DSTL, an agency of the Ministry of Defence, was commissioned to look at whether connected vehicles, which we know is the way that they constantly communicate data, are vulnerable to spying by Beijing. And yet you've got the Chancellor saying she's happy to ride in one.
Also, on midweek this week, we had the company that was going to harvest, well, they've already got the data, and sell it
the
to
biobank.
The biobank in China.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, I'm sorry, but it might sound a bit dystopian, but I do think there is a present and real danger of these Chinese EVs stopping. Can you imagine that?
Oh, of course there is.
I mean, they're almost like a drivable drone.
But you see, I drive one of these, and on occasion, it decides it's stopping.
Yeah.
And it pulls to the left. Now, what is to stop someone programming that car?
That's what I mean.
From on high, there is nothing. But there's also talk about you could immobilise those cars.
Yes.
Because, of course, you just put in a software fix that says you can't move that car. But Rachel Reeves doesn't seem to think that this is an issue for national security. I think that it's an issue that she doesn't think it's an issue.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Fundamental issue.
Apparently, when the Sunak government looked at these electric cars, a source close to the negotiations said this was an moment when they suddenly realised that actually the implications of using Chinese-made technology were far-reaching.
Yeah.
Also, Rishi Sunak found a tracking device in his car as well. There is no blanket ban on Chinese-made electric vehicles being purchased for the government fleet, but I think they need to look at this very clearly. And also, you've got to remember, let's look back at British Steel, because Jinjay, it now transpires, they were selling off the coke because they didn't want the blast furnaces to succeed, to take away our ability to make our own virgin steel. So we import it from where? China.
China.
Where is the joined-up thinking?
There is none.
Right.
It's just going round and round and round. It's a perpetuating, ever-decreasing circle.
Well,
ever decreasing till it ends up in Beijing
or
Shanghai.
Right. Well, she then goes on to say we need to get more licences, more quotas for British businesses in China. I would agree with that, and financial services, fine. But so far, Rachel Reeves, David Lammy, Ed Miliband, Douglas Alexander have all been to China since they got into office. Keir Starmer is about to go to China as well. He held a phone call with Xi Jinping, which is the first leader to do that. And a formal UK-China economic and financial dialogue was held in January in Beijing, where it was agreed that Rachel Reeves will host He Lifeng, who is the Chinese vice premier in London. I think we need to look very seriously at national security and the role and risk posed by China.
Rachel Reeves is going to Washington next week. Do you think she'll learn anything from the G7?
Well, but here's the problem, which is the US wants to isolate China.
Yeah.
The UK government needs to be very clear what our methodology is and which side you're on before you go over there. And, of course, at the same time, they're trying to do a trade deal with the United States.
Yes.
Starmer is cozying back up to the EU, even though Trump hates the EU. Yeah. What are they doing?
I don't know. I don't even think they know what they're doing.
I don't think they know what they're doing either. By the way, happy Easter, or hoppy Easter, I should say. I've been given a lovely egg here, which I'm going to not share. No, I am going to share. I'm going to share. Now, this is another big story. Donald Trump has said the US will take a pass on brokering further Russia-Ukraine talks if Moscow or Kyiv make it difficult to reach a peace deal. This is happened yesterday, actually, in the Oval Office. He told reporters he was not expecting a truce to happen in a specific number of days, but he wanted it done quickly. We played the clip yesterday, actually, of Marco Rubio when he came off the plane. And Marco Rubio warned the US would abandon talks unless there were clear signs of progress with within days. He said, we are not going to continue with this endeavour for weeks and months on end. The US has other priorities too. What's your reading of this? I mean, clearly the US has managed to get this deal almost signed, where they get all the mineral rights from Ukraine. In exchange for that, they're going to be involved in the rebuilding of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Is it a case that actually the US gets what it wants and actually walks away?
That's a very interesting take on it, David.
Well, I'm just asking.
But, you know, I'm just so happy that Trump's in charge and he's managed to get something done.
But you see, but what's Putin going to do?
I don't know.
No, I don't know.
I don't think anyone knows, to be fair. We can perhaps have a view, but the thing is, it's a bit like living with Trump. It is all day to day, isn't it?
Oh, hour to hour. I mean, I never know what he's going to do next.
I just wonder what's going to happen to Zelensky after this.
Well, they want him out.
Well, good. I think the Ukrainians want him out as well. I mean, the reality is, as you know, my view is this war should never have started. It was a Biden proxy war. Zelensky has mismanaged the funds coming through.
So why? But Russia started the war by invading sovereign territory of Ukraine.
Yeah.
So therefore, surely Ukraine has the right to fight back.
Well, it does, and it has done. But at what and whose expense?
So what?
We're still spending money over there.
Oh, I know. And what do you think about the US plan? So this was Keith Kellogg. So he basically said, right, what we're going to do is use the Dnipro River. We'll have EU forces or UK forces to the west of the river. You're going to have then a Ukrainian sort of border with the occupied territories of Crimea, of Kherson, Mariupol, Donetsk and Bakhmut, which would be ceded sovereignty to Russia. So I then think, well, hang on a minute.
But
so we're rewarding
Russian sovereignty.
Well, it's been Ukrainian for a long time.
Well,
but the fact is that Putin invaded illegally, and then he gets to keep what he invaded. Where's the lesson in that for other despots?
Like who?
Well, for anyone else who then decides that they're going to Xi Jinping, let's say, for example.
Yeah, well, where's he going to go? Taiwan?
Yes.
But the thing is, David, that has been bubbling over since Biden sent Nancy Pelosi there about 5 years ago because he couldn't send his trusted Vice President, Kamala Harris. You know, there's so much going on that in geopolitics that I don't think anyone has any knowledge of, apart from security services. This black hole of globalisation and the World Economic Forum. I mean, I am not a conspiracy theorist at all, but come on.
I mean, there's certainly more going on than meets the eye.
Of course there is.
It's interesting. Ukraine and the US took the first step, as I said, towards striking the minerals deal after the agreement was derailed.
Get Zelensky out. I mean, it's just... NATO, what, are they fit for purpose?
No,
well, exactly.
But I do think NATO is important and underpins global peace. But at the same time,
it does not. Look what's happening in Gaza. Look what's happening in Africa.
What's the option? So the UK is sidling back up to the European Union, and they're going to have a EU defence pact, and that is being signed now. So you've got to be very careful where you lay your cards here. And actually, what I think Trump is very good at is actually putting pressure on the UK and on the EU and saying you need to ramp up defence spending, and he's not wrong. We'll continue with this conversation in a minute. After the break, I want to talk about mortgage prices, because I know lots of you are very worried about inflation, what interest rates are going to do. We've got the MPC meeting, the next one coming along. But the headline this morning looks good. I'll tell you more after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Weekend Breakfast, 6:41, Saturday, April the 19th. I'm joined by Claire Muldoon. We're having a very impassioned conversation this morning. Lots of calls coming in as well. Let's take one. Daniel is on the line from Epsom. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning. Do you know what, David? As time's gone on, and I kind of agree with your guest more and more, I'm the last person that would ever be a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
really.
I agree.
But I've got my own business. You know, I'm a working class boy from SE21 London. Sort of done well. Got 3 young kids. You know, I'm not the kind of person that buys into conspiracy theories. But at some point, you have to stop and go, right, where's the democracy? If the majority of British Britons in Britain today don't want and have never wanted mass immigration from the third world, we can basically, I'm from London, right? And we can basically see before our eyes the decline and degradation that third world immigration brings, okay? Yeah, it doesn't matter really now whether you're on the left or on the right. Those people that were on the left 15, 20 years ago that would call me a racist and a Little Englander are now having their phones stolen, they're getting sexually harassed and beaten up in London and our towns and cities, and they're kind of coming around to our way of thinking. You know, the reality is, you know, there are now over 50,000 people on the Islamic terror watch list.
Yeah.
Now, in 1995, that number was 0. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of immigration you have from the Islamic third world and subsequent terrorism. We've imported FGM, honour killing, sham marriage, suicide bombing, the full vow, grooming gangs, lone wolf attacks. You know, we've got violent gangs all over our towns and cities. That when I was a boy, I'm 48, right? When I was a boy, I grew up in London in SE21, down Croxted Road, if anyone knows it, near Brockwell Park.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was a lot safer, right?
I would agree.
Now the big change has been mass immigration from the third world. Now, most people can see it destroying the fabric of our country, and Europe for that matter, but I'm mainly concerned with this country. Most of us can see that it's ruining the country and destroying the fabric of our country, okay? And the thing is, we told successive governments now for 25, 30 years, we voted for it, we've given them explicit instructions. Now, David, they work for us, okay?
Yeah, we pay their wages.
Yeah, they work for us. If the majority of British people are saying, look, we don't want it, we've never wanted it, it's ruining our country, you need to stop illegal immigration, you need to cut legal immigration down to exceptionally low numbers.
Yeah.
But they won't listen, right?
Why don't they listen?
No, but they won't do as they've been told or instructed to because I'm now the only thing I can think of is I agree with your guest. They're puppets. There's someone else with their hands up their jacksie telling them what they can and can't do. Why can't we have a diplomatic incident with France?
Well, we can.
Why can't we just say no? The British public don't want them. It's destroying the country. It's costing us tens of billions of pounds. I mean, why would you take my money? I'm a higher rate taxpayer. Why would you take my money, right, and not use it for the things I want you to use it for, but instead pay for someone to have driving lessons, a mobile phone, a nice warm hotel, whilst our own pensioners freeze? That to me shows me that white British people in Britain are at the bottom of the list. And furthermore, I grew up in SE21 on an estate, a council estate, right, with lots and lots of young black guys that are still my friends. We keep in touch. Now, the big problem that the current successive governments are going to have is those second and third generation people that came here for a better life. I think the Labour Party think because you're black and from London that your eyes don't work, that you can't also see the decline and degradation that we see. And I think what they're doing is they're ensuring that Reform are going to get tens of millions of votes because people don't want it. They've never wanted it. We can see the around our eyes. I mean, I've got 3 young children. I can't let them go into London for the day.
No.
You know, I can't let them do the things that I would have done because it's worse. Yeah, and the thing is, if the government, or successive governments work for us, why don't they do the things we told them to do? Why aren't they? Why? I mean, for example, we've currently got about.
Is it because? Sorry, let me just ask you: is it because they don't care, or is it because they're incompetent?
I think both of those. Plus, I think there's other forces and powers at play.
Like what?
If I worked for you, David, and you gave me explicit instructions to do something, and then I didn't do it. You know, I would, and this is what's been happening. I can't explain why successive governments won't do what we've asked. I mean, for example, all the MPs were being harassed, you know, and they were getting threats, and they're starting to see and feel the way that we are. They're not blind. They can see the decline as well. I mean, the thing is, David, you've currently got 72 million people in the country, right, trying to use an infrastructure that's fit for about 50 million people. It's basically why nothing is working.
No.
Okay? Now, people like me feel justified. I'm stood there going, well, look, the reason it's not working is because you've got over a quarter of the population added since I was in my late teens.
Well, we've gone up 10 million, but it all goes back to Tony Blair, doesn't it? Opening the borders and allowing people into this country. As you say, there is no infrastructure at all. But just in terms of that, people are so angry now about the levels of immigration, and yet the politicians don't listen. It's interesting. Now we're starting to hear the Labour Party saying, well, maybe, and this is Yvette Cooper saying, maybe we should stop them using Article 8 of the ECHR. No, Yvette, we need to leave the ECHR.
Yeah, I mean, something drastic needs to happen. I mean, this is not a new problem.
No.
People have been warning about this for a long, long time. You can see this coming.
OK, so what do you want to see... Sorry, because time is tight. Just what do you want to see happen?
I would like to see some real tough government.
Like what?
I'd like people to come in. I'd like us to stop immigration for about a decade.
Legal and illegal.
Yeah, everything. Listen, man, we just said... You've probably got 10 to 20 million more people trying to use an infrastructure that's not fitted out for it. Meanwhile, who loses it? Who loses out? People like me that have put tons and tons of money into the system. You know, my grandparents, I mean, I'm having to support them with my own money because our government's just completely put them on the back burner, right? And I'm just saying... You know, people like myself that would have considered myself a proud Briton living in this country. I look around now and I'm disgusted at what I see, and I look at the governing classes, and I just think, why are you doing this to us? Why won't you listen? You know, why won't you do as you've been told? And I agree with your guest. There's something sinister behind it. There has to be. Why? Because the MP's children must be getting their phones stolen.
So I think the answer is very complex, but there is definitely a disconnect between the London bubble, the Westminster bubble, and what is going on out in the rest of England. I was up near Liverpool this week. I have never seen such anger and over the disconnect, but also just saying, look, these are the problems. We go to the supermarket, the prices are too high, we have far too many illegal migrants. I can't get my kids on the housing ladder because they simply aren't there. Asylum seekers take priority. I can't see a GP. So all of this is linked.
Yeah, well, it is linked. And people like me, right, that were from London, listen, I've got a few quid. I moved out, right? I didn't. Most of the old London families like mine moved out a long time ago. We don't want to live there no more, but it's happening even more. Yeah. I've got a friend in a state agency down in Tunbridge Wells. Record numbers of people. Everyone's getting out of London.
Well, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. There's a really good article saying London risks becoming an ageing city because young people are leaving.
Listen, David, if you're going to meet a girl like I did, you're going to have children, and you want to sort of buy a house and sort of do the normal things, you ain't going to do it in London anymore. No. You can't have kids in London anymore unless you have private education and you get cars.
Oh, you can't because the Labour government have put VAT on it to make it even more difficult.
Yeah, but well, this is what I'm saying. You can't... What was normal for my parents and my grandparents... I can't. I mean, I'm doing well in life, David, and I'm not willing to go into London anymore or any big town and city because, number one, I'm a minority in my own town and city, and it's just dangerous. It's awful. It's dirty. You know, even out here where I'm now, sort of in Epsom. There's a hotel round the corner, jam-packed full of young males from the third world.
Yep.
Again, I didn't want them here. The majority of Britons didn't want them here. Why am I paying for them?
And it's a very good point. Daniel, thank you so much. That's a brilliant call to kick off the show this morning. That's Daniel there in Epsom. What a great call from Daniel. That's Jason in Whitby. David, your last caller has hit the nail right on the head. Everything he said is what we are all thinking and wanting. Top man. Thank you. Right, break time. After the break, interest rates, what's going on, inflation, and the hopes for the future. This is Weekend Breakfast.
I was looking earlier about this new hub for counter-terrorism which was built in 2021, and this is what police chiefs said about creating it. And they said counter-terrorism threats are multiplying and the style of attack is changing. Organised crime grows more complex and demands new responses. There is an ongoing urgency to create this hub. Doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing is not an option, but doing an Easter egg hunt is apparently an option.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Good morning, both. Love your show as usual. Thank you very much, Tim. Happy Easter. Claire, to answer your question, Rachel Reeves couldn't learn to turn a tap on in the US. Joanna in Salisbury, happy Easter to you, David and Claire. The government doesn't listen to the electorate because they get a few home truths, and it will cost them when other parties do. P.S. If they're closing hotels, where are the migrants going? And where are they putting the new ones that are arriving? Well, clearly they're going to the Westminster Cathedral steps. Let's talk about mortgages now. This is the front page of the Eye this morning. Mortgage price war set to start. Lenders cut rates with more on the horizon. This is going to be music to people's ears because many people are trapped or coming to the end of a fixed rate mortgage. They're looking at those mortgage rates thinking, crikey, I will not be able to afford what's going on. So mortgage lenders look set to launch a price war with borrowers in line for more rate cuts. So multiple lenders, this is HSBC, Santander, the Co-op Bank, Virgin Money, they've started cutting rates. NatWest is due to reduce prices on on Tuesday. The reason for this is they're worried about the tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. They think that will dampen the economy. The inflation figures were lower as well. This is quite interesting, though. Now the markets, and we were talking about this, saying, well, they're pricing in one more rate cut. They're now saying 4 interest rate cuts in 2025. The next one only a few weeks away. The problem with that is nothing is for granted, and I think caveat emptor, buyer beware.
Buyer beware, always. However, of course, the stamp duty holiday has finished as well. That finished 2 weeks ago or something like that for buyers that were buying a house. They had tax exemption from stamp duty. That, of course, is now finished, and I think this is the reason why interest rates might start to be coming down. But my eldest daughter's just bought a new house in Belfast, actually. She's now looking to, well, it's one of the only places in the UK that you can actually buy somewhere.
I'm sure that's right.
Know? Yeah. She's only 27. It's her second house, and it's her second house. She's got 2 houses. This is her second house that she's buying, and she's now looking at rates. What should she do? Should she do a tracker, a fixed? It's an absolute minefield at the moment.
I've had this conversation with my financial advisor.
Yeah.
And, there is a school of thought that says you stay on a tracker at the moment because it looks like they're coming down. But equally, if you do that and then suddenly something unexpected happens, and quite frankly, I don't trust the competence of this government. So anything could happen. And of course, interest rates soar and then you're left high and dry. They are saying that it does look like they're pricing in an interest rate cut in May. Which is the next MPC meeting, but we shall see. Just very quickly, this is a very interesting story in the Telegraph. London risks becoming an ageing city. This is to your point. House prices are now so expensive that people can't afford to live in this country. But also, here's the thing, the government are pricing out the landlords. The landlords are saying, right, I'm not going to carry on being a landlord. They're selling those properties. So there aren't the numbers of properties on the rental market for young people to rent. So again, no joined-up thinking.
Well, absolutely no joined-up thinking, but I don't think for 1 minute that any landlord is doing it altruistically to think, oh, let me buy a house in order to give someone a home.
No, they're not.
Right?
But the point is they're selling them now because it doesn't make economic sense
to them. Surely that will drive prices down then because of supply and demand.
They're being sold but not kept on the rental market.
But who's buying them then? People that need...
Foreign investors.
Right. But let's take this one step further, right, about London becoming an ageing city. OK?
We just heard from Daniel.
We have been saying for ages that key workers will not be able to afford to live in London in order to put the food on the shelves for people who live in London to buy and therefore eat and therefore, live in a community. Schools will be closing. There used to be a thing about a London waiting allowance. Remember that?
That's right, yeah.
For teachers and nurses and for, key workers. Will that diminish? Will that eventually go? I don't know. And all we've heard from Rachel Reeves and the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, build, build, build. But they don't have the time, they don't have the facility, they don't have the private investment to help to underpin what they want to do. There was reports about new buy-to-let models coming in. They were a waste of money. They were so highly priced, once bought, people couldn't actually get out of them.
No.
You've now got these swathes of flats, public and private partnership, public entry different from the private entry from someone building it, complete disparity there from home ownership. And what have we got?
A mess, Claire. That's what we've got. So much more still to come. This is Talk.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah, rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park. We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field." Put your foot down, this rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its two front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. As an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the magpie, which is much bigger, every springtime, the folk in this...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you, just after 7 o'clock on Saturday, April the 19th. I'm David Bull, and this is Weekend Breakfast. A very happy Easter to you all. It is, of course, Holy Saturday today. And I have great news for you, as you would expect, because it is Saturday. It's National Cat Lady Day today, a day that celebrates the bond between humans and felines, and especially women. Now, the cat lady's reputation has gone a long way since medieval Europe, when a woman's love of cats was met with suspicion and disdain.
They all called me crazy cat lady.
Very good. Also today it's Husband Appreciation Day, that's right. It's a day to celebrate the man in your life. Also, I happen to look up, it's Humorous Day as well, so it may be a joke. Make of that what you will. So, whilst you're busy with your cat and your husband, you can also get busy with garlic, because it's National Garlic Day today. A day paying homage to the pungent bulb that adds flavour and depth to countless dishes around the world. So, happy Garlic Day, Stinky Pants.
Garlic bread, you joking! Garlic bread in my mouth! You slipped on it, didn't you? That's the future. That's a taste sensation.
Right, let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
Ooh, some good ones for you. On this day in 1881, it was the death in London of Benjamin Disraeli. He was the first Earl of Beaconsfield and British Prime Minister. He became Conservative Prime Minister in 1868. He was defeated at the next election. He was Prime Minister again in 1874 with a substantial majority. On this day in 1882, Charles Darwin, the English biologist who developed the theory of evolution, died at his home in Kent. He was born in Shrewsbury in Shropshire. There's a statue to Darwin, actually, outside Shrewsbury Library. That building was once his former school. And on this day in 1928, the 125th and final section of the Oxford English Dictionary was finally published. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
David and Claire on the morning show with the news that you need and the facts that glow. Easter vibes, let's feel
fill your soul.
A very good morning to you. Easter vibes indeed. 7:05 on Saturday, April the 19th. Wow, so many messages coming in about Daniel's call. I think pretty much everyone around the country is thinking Daniel nailed it.
He really did.
You know, he said exactly what we're all thinking.
He did. He was wonderful. What a wonderful caller. And a very happy Easter, David, to you and your 3 children and your grandparents and your parents and your wife, and have a lovely, lovely day.
Yes, well remembered. The whole family there, well remembered, of course. So much common sense being spoken this morning with my 2 favourites. Stephanie, that's very sweet of you, thank you. What brilliant contributions from your guests this morning. David, we cannot carry on like this. We absolutely... Oh, that's disappeared. We cannot carry on like this. What can we do about this mess? Starmer is going to wrap us up in so much legal tape. We'll be stuck with his policies for decades. I am scared. Vinny, this is Vincent. Good morning to you. Apparently, talking of garlic, which we were, there used to be a garlic festival on the Isle of Wight.
Oh.
There you go. The Stinking Rose. Good morning. This is Daniel's call again. This is Peter. Your caller, Daniel, echoed what millions of us feel. The government must know that they got in by default, and they should have noted how and why so many of us voted for reform. We're unhappy at what's happened to our country. I think the government is going to get a nasty wake-up call. I've just got a feeling.
In these May elections.
Well, obviously I can't comment on that, but I mean generally the government has to do something, and it has to pull rabbit out of hats because it is now deeply unpopular.
Was Rayner not wanting to stop some of them?
Stop some of the...
May elections, some of the...
Yes, she stopped it for 5.5 million people. It basically has taken away the vote from East Anglia, Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire.
How can that be allowed?
Because she says she's looking at making them unitary authorities. David, I was born and lived in East London for 63 years. This is Peter in sunny Suffolk, my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
In 2016, I moved to Suffolk. I now realise it was just in time. When I talk to the Suffolk friends I've made since living here, they don't believe some of the stories I can tell them about the place
they don't.
I was born. It's very interesting that. So when did I move? I moved in 2019 to Suffolk, because that's where I'm from. But actually, I don't recognise London. I really don't. I mean, I came here at the age of 18 to go to med school, and I've lived in London pretty much the whole time, apart from when I lived in the States. And it's changed beyond recognition. It's become sanitised. It's become just completely different city.
Globalised, I think the word is you're looking for.
Maybe it is. Keep all those messages coming in. I'm asking this morning, and it seems incredibly pertinent, this question. Why do politicians actually never do what they're elected to do? Why do they constantly never listen to the public? The number 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged at the national rate. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also message us on X as well. If you have just woken up and you are just joining us, let's whiz through this morning's front pages. This is really the crux of everything that we are talking about this morning. This is the front page of The Times. Now, we know that Labour got into power and disbanded the Rwanda policy. It was starting to show dividends, I think, because we saw migrants moving to Ireland as a result of the implementation. Now, of course, no planes ever took off, but Keir Starmer, in his infinite wisdom, decided that he was going to get rid of the Rwanda plan. Now, we know that the current government has completely lost control of immigration in this country. So far, we have 9,099 people coming here illegally this year in 162 boats. That's 45% more than last year, 81% more than 2023. And this month alone, and we're on the 19th of April, we are already at 2,246. So no one has got control of this. Now, this is interesting. UN refugee body backs return hubs for migrants. The reason this is interesting is because Yvette Cooper has discussed the prospect of paying countries in the Balkans to take the Britain's failed asylum seekers at a meeting with the head of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, or the UNHCR. They're drawing up proposals to open a series of hubs overseas. This is where migrants would be sent after, that's the key word, they've been rejected for asylum in the UK and exhausted all avenues of appeal. So the UNHCR now seems to be back on side with the current government. Now, if you remember, just looking back, Yvette Cooper's been talking about this for a while now. She has in the past said she is considering stopping migrants from using Article 8 of the European Court of Human Rights to block the deportations. She is looking at offshoring schemes for processing migrants, which looks remarkably similar to the Rwanda policy, if you ask me, and failed asylum seekers would be sent to return hubs. The idea behind this is that if you come from an unsafe country like Afghanistan, Iran and Somalia, you are removed to an offshore hub. By the way, we're not off the hook because we still have to pay for them. If you are from a safe country, you're deported back. So this is quite interesting. That is the front page of the Saturday Times. Don't know which day it is. The Daily Express. Talking about the migration crisis, I mentioned this earlier as well. Easter reality for migrants at Cathedral. Migrants, illegal migrants, camping now on the steps of Westminster Cathedral. And of course, as Claire said, it's a very important week,
hugely important
religious week.
In the Christian Catholic calendar. You know, here, this is the absolute pinnacle. This is the reason why we exist.
And there you are. So
I don't think they'll be camping outside a mosque, though.
That's such an interesting comment. Why not?
Well, why? Where's the photo opportunity there? I mean, they know that Christ and salvation and generosity of spirit, etc., would extend out. But the reality is, and I know for a fact through the passage, that the Westminster Cathedral have got lots and lots of charitable arms that deal with homelessness on a daily basis. This, to me, is a photo opportunity. It's mostly staged.
Do you think?
Yes.
They're sleeping on pieces of cardboard, using sleeping bags to stay warm at the site. The security officers arrive every day to wake the migrants and move them on. Then they come back. They basically stash their kit round the back of the cathedral. 95% of those sleeping rough outside the cathedral say they are Eritrean. The number of migrants registering as homeless has spiked over the past 12 months.
But are they registering as Christians? Are they registering as Catholics?
Well, they're probably converting, aren't they? Let's move on to the next paper. This is another jaw-dropping headline this morning. Rachel Reeves, it's foolish to cut our ties with China. Haven't we just talked about the fact that China should not be involved in national critical infrastructure with Huawei, with 5G, with nuclear power stations? We've talked about this. Now, Rachel Reeves is saying it's foolish to cut our ties with China. She said it would be very foolish to cut ties with China in a rejection of Donald Trump's efforts to isolate Beijing. I suggest, Rachel, you should actually cosy up to Donald Trump. I think he's a very important ally. The Chancellor made the case for a deeper partnership with China rather than erecting new barriers. She says, oh, look, just in terms of Shein, the fast fashion retailer, oh, yes.
List it on the UK stock market.
Yes, we can put that on the UK stock market, even though we think that it's involved in child slave labour. And there are some really big questions to be asked over their sort of production processes. She says China is the second biggest economy in the world and it would be foolish not to engage. And, of course, we saw what happened with Jingzhou, and the fact is that they turned back the coke, so they were determined to close the blast furnaces, and if they got cold, it was too expensive to then get them back up and running, and that would have meant that Britain could no longer produce virgin steel. So there was I feel there was a planned attempt to close that so that we're reliant on Chinese steel.
And universities, this is in the Times, do deals with China despite MI5 warnings over spying. Electrical cars, you touched on the EVs
so this
from
other
China.
story I spoke about, electric cars, which are basically, even if they're assembled outside China and they use Chinese parts, they're spying on you. And I think we need to be very aware of that.
And the medical data.
And the biobank stuff, which is being sold to China, even though it's anonymised at the moment. But obviously, there was a great article from one of the professors saying, well, in many ways, you could target some sort of biological warfare agent to attack certain people based on their genetics.
And I would raise it one bar further. You know, all of these genetic companies, all these ancestry DNA kits. There was a
21andMe.
21 has gone bust.
It has gone bust.
So where will where's all that harvested data going to go?
I've done it.
Biohacking.
Yeah. They know everything.
It's almost as if Charlie Brooker has written a Black Mirror episode about all of this. Hey? Don't you think?
I do. The weekend mortgage price war to start. Lenders cut rates with more on the horizon. This could well be good news. They're pricing in 4 interest rate cuts, of course. Inflation wasn't as bad as we thought. The tariffs imposed by Donald Trump has a bearing on this as well. Then the question, as Claire says, is do you go on a tracker and wait to see what happens? And of course, then you have to price in how many months is it going to take to get you to the level that you would get on a fixed rate mortgage. So that's a tricky one. This is interesting. Daily Mail this morning, the front page of the Daily Mail. A quarter of Keir Starmer's ministers belong to the militant union behind the Birmingham bin crisis strikes. It can be revealed. So there are 108 ministers, 28 are card-carrying members of the hardline Unite Union. They include Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper, David Lammy, Jonathan Reynolds. So their membership fees are helping them to fund the strike in Birmingham, which is subjecting the residents of Birmingham to absolute horrors.
Tell me, David, is this strike about the fact that workers had to take an £8,000 pay cut?
No.
What's it about then?
Well, that's what they say it's about.
But how could... That is inconceivable.
That's my understanding. So I think, well, clearly the unions are flexing their muscles. Other public sector unions are also saying, oh, well, we're now thinking of going on strike as well. You've got to remember also, when Labour came into power, they gave inflation-busting pay rises to the public sector, and they thought they got them off their back. But clearly that hasn't happened.
But where's this £8,000 figure from?
I don't know, because it makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense to me.
And also, the Birmingham Authority is denying that is the right figure.
Right. OK.
So, and make of that what you will. This is just quite interesting. FT this morning.
It's getting more and more informative, I think, as a paper.
It is. It's not normally a paper I would read, but it says Defence Review urges an Arctic build-up. And the reason this is important is strategically important. The UK must expand its military footprint in the Arctic and High North as the region becomes
Greenland,
increasingly contested. Donald Trump talking about Greenland. And, of course, with warming and the ice breaking up, it means that actually we need to get a presence there. It's fascinating.
It really is fascinating.
The Guardian this morning, teachers warn of a surge in racism and misogyny. Misogyny and racism are flooding UK schools as pupils ape the behaviour of figures like Donald Trump and Andrew Tate. Through social media and online gaming, the NASUWT found most teachers identified school social media as the #1 cause of pupil misbehaviour, with female staff bearing the brunt. Teachers also raised concerns about parents who refuse to accept school rules or take responsibility for their children's behaviour. A teacher told the union a lot of the students are influenced by Tate and Trump. They spout racist, homophobic, transphobic and sexist comments in every conversation, and they don't believe there will be consequences.
This is not a Trump-Tate issue, right? I really don't think it is. This is front page of The Guardian, OK? Let's keep our framing very much alive here. Misogynistic rants against female teachers and abuse has been going on for at least the past 5 years, OK? There is a rise in young men that don't know how to treat women properly, right? But also I'd go one step further. There's also been a rise in young girls not being able to have a relationship rapport with male staff either. This transcends young kids growing up too quickly, watching too much porn, having exposure to not only pornography, but vicious, vicious things on the internet. It's not being policed at home, because in my view, parents are the primary educators.
I would agree.
OK? They are the ones that have got the power to stop the children from accessing such vile, vile content. It's easy. You pay the phone, it's your phone, not theirs. Take it off them, OK? Make sure they are measured in when they can use it. Make sure they know and they trust and they're respectful to both mother and father, whether or not it is a domestic home, whether or not mother and father live together. That's neither here nor there. Children should have respect for absolutely everybody they can come into contact with if they're older than them.
But
and
you're
that
right.
has gone
I mean,
completely out of the window.
I would take the phones off them, their parental responsibility, but also the teachers have to crack down too.
They do.
And they have to have discipline.
They have to have the ability to, though, David.
And
that's
they have
the
to
problem.
have the buy-in from the parent.
And the buy-in from the parent. If any of my kids if I'd got a call from school about any of them, I would immediately take the school's view. immediately without actually extrapolating on any of the issue caused.
Yeah.
Because that shows the child that the school are in much support of me and in respect. I have their respect. I can't teach them. That's why I give them to the professionals. But unfortunately, a lot of the teachers aren't fit for purpose at the moment. The old adage, if you can't teach, right, seems to fit the bill.
If you can't do, teach.
Yeah, OK, which is really sad because teaching is a very, very, very important part of society.
Of course it is.
It's the building blocks with decent parenting for the future of society. A brilliant teacher can inflame a child, can encourage a child, can show a child what they can do.
Yeah, I agree.
In this big, bad, ugly world.
And actually, those early years are very important because that teaching stays with you.
Hugely.
And I, you know, just drawing on my own experiences, the teachers who inspired me changed what I ended up doing.
Yes.
And the love of the subjects that I then had.
Yeah. I mean, they can be crucial, absolutely crucial in opening up a talent, an unseen, unheard talent in a child.
I agree.
We need to respect the teaching profession. We need to underpin that as much as we possibly can. They've already got their pay rise, but we should be making schools clean, safe and disciplined. And head teachers and the governing body should get behind teachers being able to...
And I was going to say, when you have a great head teacher like Catherine Birble-Singh, for example, you see the results going up through the roof.
Yeah.
Because then she had buy-in from the parents and she enforced discipline, and then the children do very well. Let's move on and look at the Daily Mirror this morning. Harry Crisis Book Fizz. Ooh, this is a goodie. A royal author is promising more sensational revelations. Oh, here we go. About Prince Harry and Meghan. This is a second book. This is Tom Bauer. He claims you'll like this, Claire. He claims their relationship is at crisis point.
Well, the palace have already got the exit strategy all done.
Yeah, they want different things, Claire. Yeah. People will be fascinated by what I've discovered now.
Suddenly they both don't want Meghan.
Yeah, they face constant battles in their lives that push them to seek revenge. Bauer reckons Harry and Meghan's relationship is hit crisis point. They want different things after they turn their backs on royal life to move to California. It's an amazing story. It's an eye-wateringly unique story. It's unprecedented. Wow.
Oh, there's that word again.
Unprecedented. Yeah. That's the Mirror. I've still got 2 more papers to do. I'll tell you what, I'll hold those till after the break. One of them involves a headbutt and the other one involves beer.
Oh. Mutually not exclusive.
Probably not. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Labour now are in turmoil and very split on this, whether or not to back this sort of radical repeddling, unpeddling of some of the sort of, more pernicious things that have been put into place. Do you have any sympathy with the Labour Party over this?
Well, I think we need to hear some leadership from Keir Starmer on this. It's one thing to say we'll note the judgment, but what is the government, what is the Labour Party in power going to actually do about this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk 726, already Saturday, April the 19th. I'm David Bull, joined by the lovely Claire Muldoon. Now, it is Holy Saturday. It's the Easter, the festival of Easter. Now, I have an Easter egg in front of me, and I just opened it, and I'm really disappointed, despite all the packaging. It's much smaller. Would you like some of my egg?
No, thank you.
Why not?
Because I don't want any.
Why?
Because...
It's 7:30.
I don't know. I don't want any.
Oh.
Thank you.
I bet they do in there, behind the screen.
Do they?
Do you? Yeah, they do. Well, I have to say thank you to Dean. He bought this, so anyway.
Well, he didn't really have much choice, did you?
No, he didn't.
No, after the tweets yesterday on X.
I bullied him on social media this morning, saying, well, there better be eggs.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots of messages coming in. Also, you're all talking about Daniel's call earlier, his brilliant call on immigration. I'll tell you what, I will replay that at 9:45, so you have to hang on a bit. We'll replay that in full, the call that Daniel gave us on immigration. Good morning, David and Claire. I find it really odd that Labour are always pushing how much they support Ukraine, but then on the other hand, they now are cozying up to China, Russia's biggest ally. Do you not think that's strange? That's Dean. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Dave and Claire. The teachers are reporting about misogyny, Trump and type. Come on, let's be real here. We know the real problem is the teachers themselves trying to promote their ideology in the classroom to induction of our children at such a young age. Regards, Phil from Hearts. That's a really interesting point because I heard from various young people over the last few days, they are being taught in politics partisan views, which is not acceptable. You should put the facts out there and let the kids decide. But they're not doing that. Thank you for that, Peter. Michael says, hi, David. I live opposite a migrant hotel in Islington and a church in front of me. They camp outside the church before they get in the hotel. You couldn't make it up. Great show. Thank you. Good morning, David. Asylum seekers arriving without any documents. They're never going to admit coming from a so-called safe country, so they will never be returned. So this is Yvette Cooper. She says, well, we're looking at return hubs now. The UNHCR now saying, well, actually, return hubs would be compatible and therefore maybe we will get this, across the line. Good morning, David and Claire. Daniel, the call of Daniel, which we're going to do at 9:45, was absolutely bang on. Our backs against the wall, and they still do not listen. Keep poking the bear, and you will wake the bear up. And that's what I'm asking this morning. Why do politicians never listen? Never listen to the public. In the manifestos, they say they're going to do things. They don't do them. Why is that? Why is there that massive disconnect? 0344 499 1000. You can also send a WhatsApp note, voice note, whatever. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also follow us on X. What a fabulous call from Daniel. This is Jane. And we've got the lovely Claire with you. I know. She doesn't want my Easter egg, though. Can you please play Daniel's clip again? I missed it. This is Kevin in Barnstable. Yes, 9:45. Promise. Also, Simon from Durham says, David, look, it's Husband Appreciation Day. Excellent. About time.
Excellent.
Excellent. It's about time. All the tasks I do around the house today could be my payback. Yeah. Go, Simon. Keep all those messages coming in, please. Let's look at the rest of the front pages now. So, here we go. The Sun. Miami Spice family photo. Posh posted yesterday. There's the family there, but where is Brooklyn?
cares? Who cares?
Anyway, he's been photoshopped in, so we know Brooklyn is there. Gosh, this one.
Which one?
The boy. He looked. What's his name?
Romeo.
Romeo looks very like David Beckham.
Which paper you want?
Sun. Front page. Also.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Underneath, this is England. So the headline is Nicky Headbutt. Ex-England and Manchester United star Nicky Butt has been given a police caution for head-butting.
Living up to his name, nearly.
A security guard. Wait for this. At his own 50th birthday. How much booze was involved? The Sun revealed in January the guard was treated for a suspected broken nose, but can today name Butt for the first time.
Well,
he has accepted the criminal sanction for actual bodily harm over the attack.
About this, but I can't believe he's only 50.
Yeah, he looks
Look at
older.
that picture. He's a tough paper round, did he not?
He did. It happened at Soho Farmhouse, which is a private club.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been, actually.
Have you not?
Have you been to Soho Farmhouse?
Yeah.
Oh, OK. Oh, the producer's got membership. I'll have you know. Yeah.
Really?
At least that's why he can afford an egg.
My goodness me.
I also want to talk about this story about private clubs. He doesn't want me to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway now, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let me just finish the papers. The Daily Star.
I love the Daily Star.
I love the Daily Star. We were talking about VE Day. The good news is the pubs are going to stay open for 2 hours longer. And the headline in the Daily Star this morning, cheers for beers. Pubs can open for an extra 2 hours to celebrate the 80th anniversary of VE Day on May the 8th. That is according to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. Churchill would raise a glass or two to that, is the copy from the Daily Star. I think it's great. I think we should allow pubs more freedom, but we need to cut the costs of pubs, operating costs, to get people back into pubs.
Oh, we do. We really need... And we need more independent pubs. But we can only get those if they can afford to actually run. You've got a wonderful listener, Margot Lavelle, and she's got a wonderful pub near Bath, Bristol and Wales and that area.
Yes.
And she says, you know, it's since COVID and since everything else and the tariffs and the minimum wage and, you know, the cost of living, it really does impact wonderful independent pubs.
Yeah, it does. This is the... let me just tell you about the members' clubs. I know that not everyone belongs to a private club, but it is quite interesting. You know, we talked about the sheer numbers of people leaving this country, and particularly high earners, those people who employ people. Well, so they were leaving the country, but they kept their private membership for a club so that you could go and have a drink, and some of the clubs have a hotel room attached or whatever. Anyway, non-doms who've left the UK are quitting their exclusive private members clubs because the blinking tax man is after them. HMRC are believing that if you have a private members club, then you are a resident of the United Kingdom. And so
that's not true. A lot of them have
Of course it's not true.
Membership clubs for different houses all over the world.
Yes. But they're now saying, so this is affecting clubs like Annabelle's Soho House, 5 Hertford Street. I mean, just looking at Annabelle's, that's $3,750 a year on top of a $1,850 joining fee. I will not be joining anytime soon. But what they're doing... So what they're doing is they're trying to get round it. So they're essentially now going to bring in memberships for 90 days, which is the amount you're allowed to be in the UK. But again, no joined-up thinking here, because what you want to do is to attract wealthy people into this country, because they are the ones that actually create the jobs and employ people. But it just feels the Labour government just wants to clobber everyone with a massive hammer, doesn't it?
Everyone. Clobber everyone. From all social strata.
Yeah. Let's just do this other story as well. This is in today's Telegraph. Wes Streeting. Personalised health MOTs could be offered to everyone approaching retirement age, under plans being considered by the Health Secretary. He says the approach, inspired by advances in Japan, could prove game-changing. They're looking at genomic profiling in a 10-year plan for the NHS.
That's why that bio...
yes, it all links back to the biobank stuff.
Sent through to China.
He said the country was embarking on a really interesting approach, combining genomics and AI machining learning to create personalised MOTs. There's a very fast computer called Fugaru, which is being used to accelerate research in personalised medicine. He says that our role is to diagnose earlier and treat faster, prevent and predict illness. I think this is bluster, personally.
Yeah, in what way?
A bit. Well, I just don't. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, but we got much bigger problems right now.
Of course we
So
do.
we can't even deal with the burden of disease that we already have, let alone profiling people genomically. I think it plays a role.
I think it does.
But your patient safety thing is absolutely paramount.
Yeah. And as a patient, because we're all patients, let's be honest, do I really want to know what might be ahead of me medically?
Yeah, I mean, clinically, if you know that you're at high risk of something, you can dive in and actually sort it out earlier. That might be.
If you're going to get it, you're going to get it.
Yes, but early treatment, early intervention makes your prognosis better.
Right.
But also, my worry is, you know, they're doing this door-knocking scheme where they're sending people round to knock on the door and weigh you and all the rest. Yeah.
What?
So community health workers are sent in round. They're now knocking on doors to check on the health and well-being of people in various streets.
Oh, no.
So they're banging on your door, they're going to weigh you, do your blood pressure and stuff. Why? What you need to do is to have much better access to clinical services.
Yes.
I actually welcome what Aradazi came up with, the polyclinic, so that you would go in and do everything.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, the stupidity of the system is you see the GP, then you need blood tests, then you have to go back for them, you need an X-ray, you have to go to the hospital. Let's just put it into one massive supermarket. That's what I would do.
But that used to be the case when the GP themselves would actually take your blood.
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Yeah, I do.
I'm sure you practiced in those days as well.
I have taken a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing needs radically rethinking, but the way I would favour this is I would have one-stop shops where you go in, and this is based on my experience in America. You go in and it was very cleverly designed. It was 4 sides of a square. You go in here, you go all the way around, you go to various stations, have
things done. Is that not what he's trying to do here?
No, Streeting is talking about genomics and health profiling and everything, which is fine, but that comes in addition to actually clearing the backlogs and actually making sure we have enough doctors. Don't start me on all of the above. Claire, thank you for the moment. We'll take a break. After the break, we're going to pop over to the United States to find out the latest going-ons over there with our allegedly closest ally. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm sorry, I've got my mouth full of chocolate. Good morning. This is Weekend Breakfast with me, David Bull. Claire Muldoon refusing to eat the chocolate, but Dean is eating all the chocolate next door. Keep all your messages coming in this morning. This is Rick on the Isle of Wight. Fantastic call from Daniel in Epsom. Please replay for the benefit of those who tuned in later. We will do that at 9:45, 2 hours' time. We will replay that clip in full. The reason for that, he absolutely nailed it in terms of what the public is thinking about the sways of young men coming to this country illegally, hanging around in the centres of towns across this country. People feel very scared to go out. The fact is that families are moving further out of big cities. The breakdown in cultural fabric in this country as well. And that's why I'm asking, why do politicians never listen to the public? 0344 499 1000. Paul in Oxford on that note says, Daniel in Epsom speaks for the nation. It's the best call of the week. Brilliant. Keep those messages coming in. But now it's time for Transatlantic Talk.
Transatlantic Talk with Caroline Faraday.
Yeah, Caroline Faraday, how are you?
I am so well. I thought you'd enjoy a little bit of Las Vegas action behind me this morning.
Are you in Vegas?
I am in Vegas.
What are you doing there?
Listen, what happens in Vegas
stays in Vegas. I have to say,
I left my house because it's a holiday weekend.
Yeah,
Friday night in Vegas, and I'm raving it up with you guys.
Love that. Do you like Vegas?
Yeah. Do you know what? This weekend, it's the big. You know they're really into wrestling here.
Yes.
WrestleMania. David, the mullets. It's just lots of men walking around with these giant wrestling, massive, great, thick wrestling belts, and the best mullets I have ever seen.
Excellent. And
amazing mullets.
And where's the wrestling taking place?
Over there somewhere. I don't know.
In a big hotel somewhere.
I won't be going to wrestling.
Are you seeing a show whilst you're there?
Well, I've seen 4 shows while I've been here.
Wow.
2 of them have been British, wonderful British performers. Piff the Magic Dragon, and he used to be called the boy with a tape on his face, but now he's called Tape Face, who were both really successful in America's Got Talent and have now got shows here in Vegas. And then we saw Penn and Teller, the magicians.
Oh, they're brilliant.
My daughter absolutely loves them. And we saw the Blue Man Group, which was really fun.
Oh, very good, very good. I'm very jealous, actually. Claire, have you been to Vegas?
I've never been to Vegas. I'd love to go, though.
Oh, you must go.
I really
But
would
there's
love...
a rule. You can only do 3 days in Vegas. Isn't that right, Caroline?
I've done a week here, and you know, here's the thing. Sorry, this is complete aside, obviously, from what we should be talking about.
Yeah, it is a bit.
I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and I think people don't think of Vegas as a place to take kids. And there's loads here for kids. So, actually, it's been quite fun. And it's been, you know, quite sober.
I actually took my mum to Vegas. She absolutely loved it. I didn't think she was coming home.
She's a big raver.
She's a big raver.
She is a big raver.
Honestly, I can't stop Pauline. She's absolutely all over it.
Pauline, all right, we'll go to Hakkasan again if Tiesto's on.
Exactly. No, she loves Cirque du Soleil and stuff like that. Anyway, look, we're digressing. Donald Trump, of course, as we say, we never quite know what's going on. He has been afforded the most incredible kind of piece of British soft power. He's coming back to the UK and he's blinking loving it.
It's a fest, David.
It's a fest.
He described it, and there's clearly what you can hear is the moment in when Donald Trump is saying how he's coming to the UK, where he forgot what the word was that he's supposed to use, and then he's like, "I'm coming over. It's going to be a fest. Yeah, it is a fest. It's a fest. It's definitely a fest." You're like, state visit. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a state visit. September. And he just called King Charles.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Charles. And then he remembered he should call him King Charles. Anyway, you're getting him. He's coming to see you. I wonder how that's going to go in September.
Well,
and then he did his usual thing of saying, nobody's ever had this honour before. It's never happened before.
Well, I don't think it has happened before. But it has changed, because originally it was going to be a cosy meeting in Scotland, I think at Balmoral. And then I think Trump's aides have said, no, he'd rather like to be at Windsor Castle. I'm sure he would.
Listen, if you're taking the flight over and the King's invited you, you'd be like, can we have the works, please? I want tiaras, I want gowns, I want a state banquet.
Yeah.
I want horses.
Well, we do it really well. I mean, it is worth... I mean, he is an Anglophile. His mother was born and brought up on the Hebridean island of Lewis. He's got a golf club, which is, a golf course opening in Aberdeenshire. Well, that's your part of the woods. And so he's absolutely going to love it. And, of course, the reason this is so important is because J.D. Vance said the other day that actually a deal with the UK is imminent. I think he said within a few weeks now that will wipe the smirks off the people in the European Parliament, won't it?
Yeah, apparently Starmer had a phone call with him on Friday, and that was one of the things that was on the, in the conversation, along with Ukraine, as you might expect, Iran, as you might expect, the Houthi rebels. But one of the things that they did talk about, of course, at the moment, the UK mostly has a 10% tariff, more on cars and steel and things like that. But and that's what they're looking to try and get a deal on. So it's definitely softening him up for that, yeah.
Right, let's talk about Katy Perry, this Blue Origin space mission. I watched it, I read all about how them outfits have been made to show off the female form. Katy Perry, I thought, behaved bizarrely.
Listen, if ever there was something that has spectacularly backfired, it's been this Blue Origin mission to space. So this is Jeff Bezos's rocket. I don't know quite what to call it. Anyway, that goes up to space, and they made this whole dramatic thing. It also featured Jeff Bezos's girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez, Gayle King, who's one of the morning TV presenters here, and some other people. They went up, they decided they call themselves astronauts, and plenty of people rightly taking exception to that. And they kind of got glammed up and went on this space cruise up to the edge of space. They were, I think, I think I've had baths that have lasted longer than their little trip to space, to be honest with you. But anyway, then she got back down and she kissed the earth, and apparently while she was up there, Katy Perry also sang It's a Wonderful World, as if these people weren't suffering enough. And it's all kind of spectacularly backlashed on them, really. I think that people would be fine with it if everybody just said, you know what, we're rich and we've gone on this little space cruise because we were offered it. But this idea that they were doing anything pioneering when they clearly weren't, and when so many people are sort of struggling, gosh, there they are mucking about, sending, wealthy people off to space while most of us can't afford a budget flight.
Yeah.
It's just a joke, isn't it?
Well, it is, and also I saw them land, and then they interviewed Katy Perry, and she gave some gushing sort of diatribe about the sanctity of the world and world peace. And I thought, I don't know what the partial pressure of oxygen has done to your brain, but clearly it's shrunk to the size of a walnut.
Yeah, she did. There was a very odd thing about, as opposed to actually talking about space, she just started talking about making space in a therapy speak way.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw the interview before she went, where she said, oh, well, I've always liked space and Pythagoras and astronomy and astrology. I was like, listen, we all read Jonathan Cain, love. It doesn't mean you can go in a rocket up. It doesn't make you an astronaut.
Oh, it doesn't at all.
So there we are, doing a bit for feminism, not
really. It's a massive marketing stunt, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually think it has really, as a PR thing, it's really backfired on her, bless her.
Just very quickly, new Star Wars film, my understanding. Just very quickly, who's going to star in it?
Our boy Ken, yes. Ryan Gosling is going to star in a new Star Wars movie that's basically a standalone movie. It's a new character. It's going to come out in about 2 years. He says it's got heart, it's got adventure. Quite interesting. It's directed by the same guy, Sean Levy, who directed Deadpool and Wolverine. So you can read into that maybe it's a little bit more kind of quirky, maybe funny, a bit more irreverent, that kind of thing. But that's all we know about it, is that Ryan Gosling is going to be in it. It's yet another Star Wars movie, but what a great franchise that is.
Yeah.
So they might as well lap it up.
So not a prequel, not a sequel, it's a standalone. Yeah. And as you say, of course, what a franchise. But of course,
They're going to space, and Katy Perry won't be anywhere near it.
Well said. Caroline, thanks very much. Always good to see you. Enjoy Vegas. That was today's Transatlantic Talk.
Transatlantic Talk with Caroline Faraday.
Very good. Did you watch that space thing?
I couldn't.
You couldn't?
You
couldn't bring yourself
I
to
couldn't
watch
bring
it?
myself to watch it.
Really?
Oh gosh, yes. They weren't even going into space.
No.
Let's be honest, okay?
Well,
were
they went
skirting
over the line,
cusp,
didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, they went over the line for going on it in the first place, I think. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I know. By the way, I'm being told off by Jane. Don't
Why?
eat the egg till tomorrow.
Yeah, well...
What egg?
What egg, Jane?
What egg? For rebirth and new life, as Jesus taught. Jesus said, don't eat your egg till Sunday. No, OK. Good morning, David. After listening to Claire on schools with her views, she would be brilliant in charge of schools. Crikey. Rod of discipline. Rod of iron. Right, let's
Well,
take...
you certainly wouldn't eat your Easter egg. Jane's right, until tomorrow.
Jesus
Do you know
said...
what the egg signifies?
Didn't he? He said,
the
don't
rolling
eat your
away
egg.
of the stone of the tomb.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Very good. All
yeah.
right. Thank you, Claire. After the break, Tom Clayton will be here with all the latest sporting headlines, everything you need to know this weekend. This is Talk.
Labour now are in turmoil and very split on this, whether or not to back this sort of radical unpeddling of some of the sort of, more pernicious things that have been put into place. Do you have any sympathy with the Labour Party over this?
Well, I think we need to hear some leadership from Keir Starmer on this. It's one thing to say we'll note the judgment, but what is the government, what is the Labour Party in power going to actually do about this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk Weekend Breakfast. Good morning, David and Claire. This is Natasha. I ponder this question every day. Surely governments are there to do the best for a country and its people. Why, therefore, have previous and especially the current government totally ignored what is best for the UK and they're actually intent on destroying it?
Yep, exactly.
Why?
Why? That's your question of the day.
That is
Who knows the answer?
Well,
help David out here.
Yeah, my question of the day is why Do politicians never listen? The point is, this is the democratic deficit. So you sit there, you basically say, here are the policies that we want to enact if you vote for us. People say, oh, that sounds quite nice, so I'm going to vote for you. You get into power, you don't do any of it.
Yeah, exactly. But also, don't forget, the opposition party for 14 years are now in government. Why have they not come up with decent policy? They could see the things that were happening to the country. They had the optic. They had front row seats at PMQs, for goodness sake.
And now they've been caught with their trousers down. They've got no policies. Moving on, it's now time for Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Good morning, young man.
Good morning.
There's a sporting competition which has grabbed my eye. The pinnacle of British sport, I think.
Pinnacle is not the word I would use personally, but sure. It's the World Marble Championships that were taking place yesterday. I can tell you they took place in West Sussex. That's about it. That's as much as I know. I was watching football. Marbles? No, I'm not 3 years old.
Oh, I played marbles at school.
Okay. We played rugby and football at school.
I played rugby.
Was it the glass ones?
Yes, with the nice pretty
nice bits in the middle. And you could
we used to have marbles.
So suddenly you're interested in the conversation.
I was saying we used to have them. We used to have them.
Right.
But
we're not talking about the Elgin marbles here.
What did you do with your marbles
fine.
if you didn't play with them?
They were usually just in a box somewhere. I don't know.
Why would you do that?
It was a long time ago. It was 25 plus years ago.
You couldn't play with them now because of health and safety.
Probably
because
not.
The glass ones that we had, you dropped them, they'd smash.
Well, not only that, if you threw them at people, which obviously I'm not condoning.
An eye out.
Anyway, so that's the World Marbles. Well, thanks for the insight into that.
Yeah, great. That's me done for the day.
Now, you want to talk about Leeds and Burnley?
Yes, because yesterday was a very important day in the Championship. There were plenty of games going on. I'm sure you do. I, as a sports journalist, like watching football. But,
right.
Well, you know, he's antagonising me. I'll antagonise him.
He's not. It's his show.
So
come on, Tom.
I'm a guest
get on with
in
it.
3 weeks. What if she stopped interrupting me? What is she?
Anyway,
right. So anyway, we're now sort of in the final stretch of the football season. We're into the final stretch of the Championship season.
Shame.
It's a massive kind of run towards the line. And it's really interesting because there's been 3 teams battling it out for promotion all season, and it's remarkable. I've been looking into the optics of how much promotion is worth to each of these teams. It's worth £140 million over the next 3 years, which is incredible. So understandably, a lot of teams, they put all of their eggs into the basket of promotion. If they don't go up, then it doesn't end particularly well for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can go down really poorly. But fortunately, it seems like Leeds and Burnley have kind of got it right this year. They can both be promoted on
Leeds
Monday.
not in the Premier League?
No.
I thought they were.
Yeah, well, you know, as a Leeds fan, it's been a trying few years. Yeah, they had a 3-year stint in a couple of years ago, and then before that, it was 16 years they were out of the Premier League for.
Is there is it Elland Road?
Elland Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
I only know because daughter number 3 went to Leeds University.
I see. Very good.
As did Stormer.
As did my auntie as well, actually.
Really?
Anyway.
I have so much to say on that. Right, carry on.
Yes, but anyway, so promotion could be confirmed on Monday for Leeds and Burnley, live on talk Sport. Very excited about that. Also, just want to mention the World Snooker Championships. They get underway today. Ronnie O'Sullivan is taking part, as far as we are aware. He confirmed on Thursday that he was taking part, taking on Ali Carter in the first round.
In Sheffield at the Crucible?
At the Crucible, yeah. I went a couple of years ago. Brilliant, fantastic venue. They've been talking about changing it because it's quite old and it's quite small. They want it to be bigger.
To smoke.
But isn't that the whole point? It's intimacy.
Well, this is the thing. So there's some people who are kind of like, this is the pure kind of element of the sport. There's some people who are, it needs to be big. I mean, look at darts, for example.
Well, I was going to say, like, darts at Thurrock, that made me laugh. You know, the fact is that you've got people jumping up and down.
Gone from Lakeside to Alexandra Palace, which is incredible, So, yeah.
OK, and then finally you want to mention the Grand Prix?
Yes, so Saudi Arabian Grand Prix takes place tomorrow. The Team McLarens look like they're the fastest. Oscar Piastri, young Australian, has taken the momentum after winning in Bahrain last week. Young British driver Lando Norris is his teammate. He was the de facto favourite for the championship, but just gone off the boil a little bit, hoping to recapture some of his form.
Because he's been in Vogue magazine, isn't it, or something, Lando?
Something
he's
like
been
that.
doing some modelling. But we like Lando more than we like Max Verstappen, I think.
I think we like most people more than we like Max Verstappen. So.
Right.
Set that up for you
Tom, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Clayton there with the latest sporting headlines. So many messages coming in. Again, Louise from Suffolk saying, David, the call from Daniel has to be the best call ever to talk. Please pass it on to the other presenters so it can be replayed. Everybody needs to hear it. As I say, we're going to play that at 9:45 so you can hear it all over again. After the break, I'm going to be asking a very simple question. Is Britain now the heartland of Islamic extremism? This is Talk.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like someone out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field." Put your foot down, this rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, cripes, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you, just after 8 o'clock now on Saturday, April the 19th. Happy Holy Saturday, of course, as part of the Easter celebrations. Hope you're very well. I have great news for you this morning. It's National Cat Lady Day. Yeah. It's a day that celebrates the bond between humans and felines, particularly women. Now, a cat lady's reputation has gone a long way since medieval Europe, when a woman's love of cats was met with suspicion and disdain.
We know such terrific cat ladies. Betty White, Dolly Parton. Are you listening?
That's nice, isn't it?
Taylor Swift.
Also today, it's Husband Appreciation Day today, a day to celebrate the man in your life. Also, by the way, it's Humorous Day, so you can tie those two together and make of it what you will.
My husband just went out to take a fish off the line.
Right, of course he did. It's also, this is a good one, it's National Garlic Day today, a day paying homage to the pungent bulb that adds flavour and depth to countless dishes around the world. So, happy Garlic Day, Stinky Pants.
I know I'm in love with the girl who likes garlic bread. I've become in love with the girl who likes I think I'm in love with the girl who
most eclectic record collection, Dave, that I have ever seen. Right, let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
So some new ones for you this hour. On this day in 1933, Dickie Bird, known, actually his real name, Harold Dennis Bird, English cricket umpire, was born in Barnsley in Yorkshire. Also born this day in 1935, the birth of Dudley Moore, of course, the English actor, comedian and composer. Now, on this day in 1951, here's one for Dave. The first Miss World contest was won by Kiki Heikkosson, a 21-year-old from Sweden. Now, there were actually 30 contestants. 25 of them came from Britain, although all nations could enter. The contest, as we probably know, was devised by Eric Morley. What I didn't know was that he was actually the publicity officer at Mecca at that time. It was part of the Festival of Britain celebrations, and of course it then fell out of favour. It then got resurrected, and I think it's back on again. I always enjoy the questions they ask them. What would you do for world peace and so on? They never have a clue what they're going to do. On this day also, the death of I think, a comedic legend, Frankie Howerd, OBE, English comedian and comic actor whose career spans 6 decades. It was described by fellow comedian Barry Cryer as a series of comebacks. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
Easter breakfast vibes bring the joy alive. David pulls on the line. Come on, let's thrive. With news and jokes, we're feeling so fine. It's party time.
It certainly is party time. 5 minutes past 8, Saturday, April the 9th. I have never seen so many messages coming in as I'm seeing this morning. Good morning, David. We're talking about illegal migration. We're talking about... there's a story somewhere, if I can find it, hidden under the Easter eggs. There is a story. This is about... the government's latest plan to actually do something about the numbers of illegal migrants. This is the front page of the Times. UN refugee body backs return hubs for migrants. So the Labour government has been really struggling, while actually failing miserably, to do anything with the illegal migrants. They thought this was going to be easy. On day one, they got rid of Rwanda, and actually, in some ways, the Rwanda policy had started to pay dividends, even though no planes had ever taken off, but that's not really the point. Let me just tell you the numbers. So far this year, 9,099 have come over in 162 boats. When you look at that, compared with last year, it's up 45%. 45%. And if you look at 2023, it's up 81%. This month alone, 2,246 people have come here illegally. Now, the reason this is interesting is Yvette Cooper has been meeting with the UNHCR, the UN High Commission for Refugees. They are now open to the idea of return hubs. Now, we're seeing this on the back of the ruling in Germany, saying that if you claim asylum in Greece, Greece is quite acceptable because you've got a bed and you've got water and you've got some bread, and you can't then come to Germany. So there's a hardening of resolve across Europe which is going on, and now it looks like the UNHCR is now going to back migrant hubs, and of course then the big elephant in the wardrobe is going to be the European Court of Human Rights, and of course this is going to be challenged as well. Many of you commenting on this. Good morning, David. It's not just London where the native population are leaving in droves. I live in one of the ever-lessening nice areas of West Yorkshire. When I moved here, I was an outsider. Everyone had the local accent. Now everyone has a different accent. The local accent has all but disappeared, and this is because native Brits are escaping the cities. Good morning, David. That last caller from Epsom has nailed it. This is Daniel. It's what everyone is thinking. I'm a Londoner. I feel like a foreigner in my own city. Even my black friends and even my long-standing Asian friends can see it. They say to me, where have all the old school white people gone? I was talking about this in Makeup yesterday, just saying London is unrecognisable from the city it was when I came here when I was 18. It's so different, and yet so many people in London don't seem to speak any English at all, and I don't think that's acceptable. Keep all these messages coming in. Hurrah for Daniel. He's spoken most eloquently about the problems in this country. This is starting to come to a boiling point. I agree. Finally, I'm a high-rate taxpayer. I'm fed up with funding immigration. Cheers, Jason in Worthing. Thanks, Jason, for your message. What a brilliant conversation from Daniel on your programme. Can he get his voice on more great views that many of us have? That's Margaret in Yorkshire. And we're going to play that again at 9:45, the call that Daniel gave me earlier on. This one from Bob Mankin in Aberdeen. Your last caller speaks for us all. Sophia says, what a great call from Daniel. Couldn't agree more. Keep all of these messages coming in. If you don't mind stupid people in high places, you'll love this government. That's Vinny. Keep those coming in. There is a major problem in this country in terms of illegal migration, the fact that governments, political parties are ignoring it at their peril, in my humble opinion. We're seeing the rise of extremism in this country and across Europe. But there's a really interesting article I read a couple of days ago. And the headline is really shocking. Britain is now the heartland of Islamic extremism. In recent weeks, something extraordinary has happened in Gaza. Ordinary Palestinians have taken to the streets to protest against Hamas. They're not abstract calls for a regime change. They're acts of courage in the face of real danger. It goes on to say they're living under a terrible, oppressive regime that hides weapons in schools and hospitals and diverts foreign aid, indoctrinates children, rules by terror. Those under the rule of Hamas, this is brutality. It's not distant, it's not theoretical at all. And the revolution that many Gazans long for is not exclusively against Israel. It is against the death cult that governs them. They then take that picture and juxtapose it to what's going on here in Britain. Over the last 18 months, including on October the 7th, British streets have been filled with protesters who celebrate the massacre of Israeli citizens as an act of resistance. There are chants in London of Zionists out. They're shouted in Arabic. These are not cries for justice. They signal allegiance to an ideology of annihilation. It goes on to say that there is a huge irony here because the Muslim world is turning away from Islamist extremism and Britain is incubating it. Saudi Arabia, as we know, is normalising relationships with Israel. And that was the whole point, that Iran didn't like it and is working through its proxies to cause these wars. Egypt is also now is very familiar with the threat posed by Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. It sealed its border with Gaza, and the Muslim Brotherhood is banned in Egypt and the UAE. Yet in Britain, we seem to be doing absolutely nothing about it. Joining me now is Ghaffar Hussain, who is a political commentator and writer. Good morning.
Good morning, David. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for coming on. I think this is, again, we're just in terms of what people are talking about, we are seeing scenes played out in cities around this country. We are seeing a rise of this extremist ideology. And it feels like when you look at countries like the United Arab Emirates or indeed Saudi, who are all turning their backs on Islamist extremism, what exactly are we doing in Britain?
Well, you're right that the GCC states like Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia are turning away from Islamist extremism more and more. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's happening globally. If you look at Pakistan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Islamist extremism, jihadist groups are still very active and lively. So I think it's a bit of an exaggerated way of making the point that, you know, Britain is the epicenter. Obviously, if you look at terrorist attacks, France has had more than Britain, certainly in recent years. So that's I mean, it's a way of making a point, I suppose. I think it is hyperbole. But if you look at, you know, attacks in the UK, attack planning, attack defender data, clearly there's a problem. Clearly we do have a problem. And I think we could go into a whole discussion about why the UK as opposed to, you know, Sweden or Spain. But I would say, you know, the UK has had very well established Islamist extremist groups since the 60s, really. You know, London's always been a hub of activism, given that it's a global centre, it's English speaking. Asylum extremists have used the asylum seeker route in the past to establish routes here. There's more extremist content produced in the English language, for example. If you look at our immigration patterns, we've had more conservative communities coming to the UK as opposed to, say, Germany and other places historically. So there are a bunch of reasons we can go into to explore why that's been the case. But I think it's also important to distinguish between sort of conservative practice and violent extremism. They're not necessarily the same thing. So you will have communities and individuals who adhere to quite a conservative, austere interpretation of their faith. They might have very strident views on, say, Israel-Palestine, as many people do across the political spectrum. People have very strong views on that issue. But that's not necessarily the same as people who will support Al-Qaeda or ISIS or violent extremism. Having said that, and this is probably going to go contrary to the point you've made, but the trend is reversing in recent years. If you look at attack planning, it has gone down. You look at the amount of terrorist attacks we've had, and it has gone down.
But surely that's to do with the security services and the interception of those plots much earlier.
Well, yes, but there's also less attacks. There's less plots to stop as well, if you know what I mean. So the amount of plots, if you look at plots thwarted data, that has decreased in recent years, right? So, for example, 2024 was the first year since 2005 where there was a terrorist attack in the UK. So plots are going down, attacks are going down. And if you look at survey data, certainly for British Muslims who are born and raised in the UK, the trend is towards becoming more moving away from extremism, if you like. That is that trend. But obviously, you've got new people coming up with new people coming to the country with different attitudes as well. So it's a complicated and mixed picture.
What drives the ideology of terrorism in this country?
It's a good question. People look for simple answers to these really complex questions, and it's difficult because there are so many reasons, there's so many factors. For a lot of people, it's a personalised journey. And it's a combination of many things. It's personal grievances, inability to integrate sometimes, views around what's happening globally, access to content. I think social media actually plays a very big role in this as well, because the way social media algorithms work is once they detect that you are interested in a particular point of view on a particular issue, they'll give you more and more of that point of view. So you're far more likely to go down a rabbit hole and essentially into this digital echo chamber where your existing prejudices are constantly reinforced. But I think we do have an integration issue in this country as well. I think we can't shy away from that. We are the communities up and down this country aren't as integrated as they should be, in my opinion. There is obviously a lot of people who are very well integrated, but I think we could do a lot more in the integration space and bringing people together. We could do a lot more also about talking about commonalities, talking about what makes us a single people, as in what makes us British. So there's been divisions. There's been identity politics. There's been people who have been pitted against each other.
Well, can I just jump in there, because I live in East London, and I have never seen such a dysfunctional society where you have silos of people coexisting, as you say, with no integration whatsoever. How do you get these people to integrate if they live in these silos, if they separate themselves from the indigenous population of this country, from British people? How on earth will you ever get them to integrate if they use different religious facilities, if they mix with families and friends who have absolutely no wish to integrate?
I think there are some who have no wish to integrate, but there are many people who do want to integrate. And I think people, even in mainstream British society, don't necessarily want to integrate with people who've arrived from different backgrounds or different cultures. I think that the issues on both sides as well. But I think if you bring in people who are from very different cultures, very different backgrounds, from agrarian societies that are quite tribal, that are quite conservative, and suddenly throw them into the heart of trendy Hackney, that's the process going to take a while to to sort itself out. So it's not going to happen quickly. But I think from a policy point of view, not enough thought was being put into really understanding the nuances, how to make this work. So people have just gone and done the obvious thing, which is stick to what they're familiar with. Most people do want to stick to what they're familiar with, whether they're white British or Bangladeshi Muslim. They'll stick to what people prefer to stick to what they're familiar with. So if you want something like integration to happen, there's to be an active effort to make it happen. I think we've assumed it's just going to happen, and we've just focused on the economic side of things. Well, actually, this requires social policy to make it happen.
So do you feel that's a failure of planning, of policy, of government, where they allowed people to come to this country? There was no attempt to try and have active integration, let them integrate on their own, and of course that has failed.
Yeah, look, immigration was an economic policy, it wasn't a social policy, which means I don't think any great thought was put into the social and the political dimensions of it. It was like, oh, this is going to increase the GDP, it was going to help rebuild Britain after the Second World War, and plug, employment gaps. So there's various economic arguments made, and I think it was seen purely through an economic lens. Anything around integration or social cohesion was a bit of an afterthought. And I've never seen any real concerted effort from government, either in terms of budget or in terms of policy, to really look at this issue in a deep way and see actually what are the failures, what can we do more as a society to build cohesive communities. As I believe cohesive communities, which can be multicultural, can be multi-ethnic, can be multiracial, can work, and they do work in places, but it takes a lot more effort to make a complex society like Britain work.
So what would you like to see from here? How do we change the situation we are now in?
I think we need a stronger sense of localism. I think we try to invigorate local communities. We need to have more forums and opportunities that people come together. Sport is a great way of bringing people together, for example. People, forget who they are when you're on a football team and you're trying to get your side to win, right? Similarly, art. There's things like that which break down barriers and unite people on their humanity. And we need to do more activities that allow us to do that. But also there needs to be more concerted effort around things like, understanding the ethos of Britain. What is a British ethos? What is it about? What does it take to be a Brit? What are the values and a way of thinking that Britain has that needs to impart to people? And that starts in the school system, but also in community projects.
You see, I think people like the Mayor of London have been very divisive in this, because I don't hear a happy Easter message. I hear all about Ramadan. There isn't a celebration of the cultures that we grew up with in this country.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't followed Sadiq Khan that closely, but what's your point? Is there should be more.
My point is that actually, you've got the King talking about multi-faith messages, and actually, I think the resentment is building because Indigenous populations in this country are feeling ignored. They're feeling isolated. They're being made to feel like second-class citizens in their own country, and that will lead to trouble.
I think sometimes there's a view that we need to do more to help those who are disenfranchised and alienated, which is often interpreted as minority communities and new arrivals. But you're right, there is a point around white working class people also alienated from main society. And I think that's something we're only just coming to terms with now. It's kind of it's something which we're starting to get our heads around. But historically, the reason I think that they have been neglected is because there's been an understanding that we to make the newcomers feel more welcome in the new environment that they're in. But yeah, we need to have a message that resonates with everyone. We need to have messages generally, and politicians in particular need to say things that appeal to everybody, not just. I don't believe in identity politics. I don't believe in splitting people into racial and ethnic groups and making them resources. We need to do things that bring people together and have causes and issues and themes that unite people from different backgrounds.
So I suppose the take-home message is, if I've read this correctly, you're saying that as the generations unfold, then you're going to see more integration happening, particularly with younger people. I
think if you look at migration around the world, it's the second generation that finds it the hardest. The first generation who was born and raised in a particular culture generally hang on to their culture values. Yeah. The second generation grow up with a sense of dual marginalization, meaning that they have a different culture at home and a different culture in the mainstream society. They find it hardest to integrate, and they tend to be the most angry about the challenges. When you get to the third generation, who are born and raised in households where there is quite a British mentality, are better integrated, and we're starting to see that come through now. So I think we've seen the worst of this in the 90s and the early noughties, and even up until 2020, we've probably seen the worst of it. Having said that, some of this is driven by global trends. What happens in other parts of the world when you have obviously Iraq, Syria, issues with ISIS, when you have things like Israel, Palestine, there is a geopolitical impact on local trends as well. But I think over time, we are going to get to a better place. I do believe that.
It's really interesting. Ghaffar Hussain, thank you very much for your time this morning, political commentator and writer as well. David, this is Peter. Almost everything I see and hear tells me our country has been invaded by foreign extremists. I'm in my 70s. I've been very aware of how the country has changed dramatically in the last 25 years or so, beginning with Blair's policies, which were virtually endorsed by the following governments. I despair at where we will end up. Just in terms of illegal immigration as well, this is Brian. Just take a look at any of the footage of the small boats. Try and spot a woman. Try and spot a child. No, the boats are full of young, 20-something young men who have no intentions of getting a job or integrating into society. You could fill Wembley Stadium with this army of young men who would outnumber our own armed forces. Now, that's a scary thought, considering most of the immigrants are of Islamic persuasion. What's the saying about the enemy within? We don't even know where most of these people are or what they're involved in. Brian, thank you for that. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on all of that. I think the lack of integration into this country is a major problem when you have people coexisting, and that is the right word, living in silos with absolutely no intent to learn the language or to integrate or to understand the customs of what is a predominantly Christian country. That is the fundamental problem that underpins this, as far as I can see. Let me know your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000, calls charged at the national rate. We are going to replay that brilliant call from Daniel on immigration. So many messages and calls coming in about that. I'll take those after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Well, good evening. I can't decide whether this new announced policy is either cynical or naive, but I don't think it will work. What it will do is it will essentially legalise illegal crossings into the United Kingdom across the English Channel. And if Labour manage to get an agreement with the French on this, we'll see small boat numbers reduce.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk 828, Saturday, April the 19th. I'm David Bull, and this is Weekend Breakfast. The lines are red hot. Let's take a call now from Charles in sunny Sussex. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dr. David. I hope you're well today, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you too.
Talking about Daniel's call earlier.
Yes, Daniel from Epsom.
From Epsom, yeah. We live near Heathrow in West London. And we made the decision to move a year and a half ago when a friend of ours and a neighbour was threatened with a machete outside our front door because two horrid little people wanted to steal his moped. He was only a young guy, he's not very well, and it put us off. So the flip side of Daniel's call is we decided to make the move, and we moved down to East Sussex, thinking it would be perfect. And then we find we live just around the corner from Mike Graham. The grass is always greener.
Right, well, there you are. There you are. Right, and I assume he's a very noisy neighbour.
I don't know. We don't speak to him. We're in the posher road.
Very good. Very good. All right, lovely, lovely to talk to you. Just in terms of, have you got away from the mass migration that is happening, or does it affect you where you are?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't affect us at all. They wanted to turn the hotel down at Cooden Beach into a migrant hotel, and all sorts of things went off. Absolutely not going to happen. North Eye they wanted to turn into a detention centre.
Yes, that's right.
That's not going to happen. It's going to be a housing estate now.
Right.
They'll put all the migrants, obviously.
Sorry?
Where they'll put all the migrants and say, oh, no, it's not a migrant centre, it's a housing estate.
Well, absolutely. Really good to talk to you, Charles. Thanks very much for your call. Right, let's move on. It's time for Head to Head.
Head to Head.
Well, joining me this morning, I'm delighted to say Piers Pottinger, who's a political commentator and new to the programme, and also Mike Indian, political journalist and commentator and seasoned panellist here. Good morning to the two of you. Shall we start with this? Because we've been talking about this article, Britain is now the heartland of Islamic extremism. We've been talking about immigration. This is the front page of the Times this morning. The UN refugee body backs return hubs for migrants. I find all of this pretty laughable, actually, but Yvette Cooper has met with the UNHCR. They're now saying, OK, we are justifying the use of return hubs that, and maybe this is a win for Yvette Cooper and for the Labour Party. But obviously what happened previously was the government got into power and then decided to get rid of the Rwanda policy overnight, even though they had no idea whether it was going to work or not. And unless I've read this wrong, this policy is remarkably similar to policies I've seen previously.
Yeah, I think what's happened is for 14 years the Labour Party...
Has your microphone slipped down your... I think it made...
Yes,
yes, you see, sorry. I thought it had. We want to hear every syllable. Are you all right there?
I can't see it anywhere.
OK, whilst you find your mic, I'll come to you, Mike. Just in terms of that, isn't this suspiciously similar to something else I've seen? So if you, just looking back at where we were, so we are now talking about the idea that we've got these immigration hubs. That's what this is all about. They've got a huge problem. Illegal migration is not under control in any sense. Is this a win?
It is, in the sense that the Rwanda scheme never got the endorsement of the UN Commissioner on Human Rights. For Keir Starmer, it was interesting reading Chris Philps' quote in the Times article this morning saying that, Labour should have never have abolished the Rwanda scheme. No one thought the Rwanda scheme, please pardon the pun, would ever get off the ground.
Didn't they?
It is.
I mean, the plane was standing there.
It was a very...
I saw the plane.
This is the trouble. What governments are continually trying to do is target a strong deterrent here, but also the means of expelling migrants from the country. But this only applies, as Rwanda did, if all particular options of appeal have been exhausted.
Exactly.
And as I've said before, we think about the migration system, the immigration system in this country as a series of pipes. Many of them are blocked. I mean, the issues aren't necessarily to do with getting people out of the country. It's to do with the fact there's a backlog of appeals being heard. People, they don't have anywhere to put people. I mean, our caller just now indicated that, that a reticence to have a detention centre down the road for them. But if we're going to make sure the system works and we can process people, we can either choose to process them here on our own soil or try and do this elsewhere. And those return hubs won't solve that problem.
I mean, it is quite interesting, though. The language is toughening up, isn't it, from Yvette Cooper? She's talking about stopping migrants from using Article 8 of the ECHR. They're talking about these offshoring schemes. So just to be clear, so every failed asylum seeker, these are rejected asylum seekers from countries deemed unsafe like Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, they would be removed to an offshore hub. Those from safe countries would be deported back. I mean, I get the point that you've got the UNHCR on your side, so therefore does this make it more likely to happen? I
think you've got to remember that the Supreme Court case hinged very heavily, put a great deal of weight on the fact that the UN did not endorse the Rwanda scheme as well. And, of course, where these schemes often fall down is due to legal challenges, not also due to international cooperation as well. So having that kind of endorsement in an era when multilateralism, as we have seen, is increasingly detracting from the world stage is a very important facet, but it is not a guarantee of success, David.
No. Piers, now you're back with us.
Yes,
so just in terms of that, your thoughts on all of this, because this morning I read it and I thought maybe this is very clever, because actually what they're doing is getting their ducks in a row, first of all. They're getting the UNHCR on board, so therefore you've then got, as Mike says, you've then got the ability to say, well, we've got them on our side, so they're not actually going to appeal it. At the same time, I think the government has, I can't find the exact words, but it was game-changing, I think, was their response.
Well, I mean, I think it's certainly helpful for once from the UN, who haven't been terribly helpful up until now. And also, don't forget, the Labour Party spent 14 years voting against everything the Conservatives tried to do in terms of immigration. And when they got in, they had no idea what to do themselves, except talk about smashing the gangs, when actually they've got to stop the incentive for these people coming here. And we've had record migration, illegal people coming in on boats. Only this last week it's happening. Although Rwanda was very unpopular, it was at least a solution. And now it would appear the Labour Party are quietly building up to doing something awfully similar.
I agree. It looks awfully similar to what is going on.
It does, yes. And it shows again that they really, this constant voting against everything for the sake of it is a really pointless exercise when you're trying to actually solve a very complex problem.
I mean, isn't that is the crux of this issue, which is actually, whilst you're in opposition, you don't have to come up with any practical solution. The minute you get into government, you realise, oh, well, this is actually quite difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, as this government have shown, on almost everything, they have no ideas at all.
Where do you stand on the fact that actually this win in Germany, and I think it is very significant, the win that has happened to Friedrich Merz, where the court in Leipzig have ruled that asylum seekers who meet that criteria can be deported back to Greece. So essentially the asylum seekers coming and claiming asylum in Greece, okay, and then they decide they don't like Greece very much, so they then went to Germany and tried to claim asylum again. Now the court has ruled they can be sent back to Greece because you've got bread and you've got water and you've got a hotel. That is quite acceptable. That is a win for Germany. Now, Germany, of course, remember, had an open-door policy to migration.
They did, and this really did come back to bite Angela Merkel at the time. It was the fact that she did what she thought was a compassionate policy, but effectively it led to trainloads of migrants. Remember it on the news 11 years ago, pouring over the borders into Germany. And of course they have a far trickier time policing their borders than we do, because of the fact that most of their borders are land borders, but also because of Schengen as well. I think the issue we have to remember with this, though, is that this is simply enforcing the Dublin Convention, whereby migrants that arrive asylum seekers that arrive in the European Union should be basically granted asylum in that first country that they arrive in within the Union, not first safe country, I should say, not within a country further along the line.
So that's really interesting. I reread that about the Dublin Agreement.
It's talked about a lot, but it's very rarely enforced.
It's never enforced, and it doesn't actually quite say that. It says processing has to occur in the first country that they come into, rather than that is the country they have to remain in. But nevertheless, I do think this changes the dynamic, and I mentioned this earlier. You've got Germany, obviously, with that win. You've got Meloni. She's being very strong on immigration as well. I just wonder, actually, have we now reached the tipping point where the whole of the EU realises they've got a problem, we've got a problem, we all need to work together?
Well, yes, I think it is pretty much a global problem, and it does need global solution. But on this scheme, I noticed they're talking about sending people to the Balkan states.
They are.
So we'll be sending Albanians back to Albania.
Which I thought we were doing.
Well, that's what I thought, yes. But and Serbia. And actually, I think that is quite a deterrent, because I think a lot of people coming illegally here might not like the idea of being sent to Albania or Serbia very much. It's a much harsher regime there.
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. I mean, one of the other things, and I just want to mention it, is I've been travelling around the country. The level of anger from people around the country, which is very divorced from the Westminster bubble, is palpable. It's what everyone came up to talk to me about. And the front page of the Daily Express today, Easter reality for migrants camping outside Westminster Cathedral. Do you get the sense that actually we've reached a point where, and this is what people are saying this morning, I'm sick and tired of this. No one is listening to us, the indigenous British population. The politicians aren't listening in any sense, shape or form, and something has to change.
Well, I think so, because that's the main reason Reform is doing so well and will sweep the board at the local elections coming up. And there's no question that, as it's their number one policy plank, and Farage has communicated that very well, and the general public are fed up and they want real solutions to this real problem. And people talk about stopping the boats or smashing the gangs. They put in a border czar who the first thing he did was to say this system doesn't work. We're paying the French hundreds of millions of pounds,
yeah, 500 million, didn't we? Yeah.
Supposedly to stop these people coming, and yet they escort them into our waters. I mean, it's got to a ludicrous state. And of course the housing, the Labour Party are talking about building all these houses, they're mostly for these migrants. They're not actually for indigenous British people. And we've got to the point now where it's almost become, you know, you're in the minority if you're a British person. And that's worrying.
Let's pause just for the moment. Gentlemen, thank you for the moment. Piers Pottinger, Mike Indian will return. Sounds like a movie, Mike. After this break, this is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Middle of head-to-head with Piers Pottinger and Mike Indian. Gentlemen, let's just look at the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Reeves, it is foolish to cut our ties with China. I read this morning at about 3 o'clock this morning, and I was like, my mouth dropped open. This is Rachel Reeves says, it would be very foolish for Britain to disengage with China in a rejection of Donald Trump's efforts to isolate Beijing. She makes the case for deeper partnership with China rather than erecting new barriers. She also talks about the fast fashion company Shein floating on the London stock market, even though there are real concerns over the use of child labour. She said she's happy to ride in Chinese-made electric vehicles despite spying fears. Rachel Reeves, I'd suggest you read the paper from 2 days ago when the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory said there are concerns that Beijing could eavesdrop on you if you're in an electric vehicle, even if the cars are made outside China using Chinese parts. Rachel Reeves, does she actually read the paper, do you think?
I'm sure she does. I mean, look, the last few weeks have been, you know, I'm not going to say a transformational for the global economic order, but certainly have raised important questions about which economies countries can choose to engage with. And what is clear is that you cannot ignore either the USA or China in that regard. And there's a brilliant video on YouTube of somebody going into the Trump shop inside the Trump Hotel and trying to find out which items are made in China and which of those are actually made in the USA. It's about 50-50, by the way,
yeah,
Donald Trump's own merchandise. The Chancellor's securonomics agenda looks more prescient than ever at the moment, and certainly with last Saturday's debate on British Steel and the intervention the government's taken there, it looks like that they're taking steps in the right direction. But of course,
in what sense?
Well, I think in the sense that the government is trying to keep strategic national assets open, but of course we have to remind ourselves that we are incredibly exposed as a country, even more so than many others due to the mass privatisation of many of our key utilities in the 1980s, and also in our telecommunication structure as well. The last government took action to try and prevent Huawei from having a key stake in that.
Which was the right decision.
But you cannot ignore the world's second biggest economy, and this is the balancing out of the structure. No, and that photograph that's been doing the rounds of Xi Jinping in the pub with David Cameron from about 10 years ago now was undoubtedly coming back to haunt the former Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary at this time as well. But the Chancellor is right in the sense you can't ignore China, but that doesn't mean you can't provide constructive criticism of their shadier practices.
But isn't the issue that you don't want China involved in any of our national infrastructure, anything that is remotely important or sensitive, such as nuclear power stations, for example? I mean, the whole thing over Jingzhou and the blast furnaces seems absolutely ridiculous. The fact is they wanted to close down those furnaces to ensure that we're reliant on cheap Chinese steel, therefore we can't make virgin steel. I mean, I just don't understand why the politicians didn't see this coming.
And Jingzhou, let's be clear, are still running Scunthorpe.
Yes.
I mean, we've had Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves all went to Scunthorpe after Saturday's decision. They're all photographed in their hard hats wandering around, and they still haven't come up with a plan for it. None of them. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And she talks in her interview with The Telegraph about resetting the relationship with China. They're obsessed with this word reset. I'd like to reset her brain to reality instead of this mad socialist ideology that drives everything they're doing and driving this country into a deeper mess everywhere you look.
Now, come on, Piers. If it was a mad socialist ideology, they'd have nationalised British Steel straight away.
Well, they're subsidising it. They're subsidising it now, and subsidies are just as bad as tariffs. On the other side of the scale,
my question is, to any free marketeer listening, would you prefer to see the last virgin steel producing plant in this country close, or the state take control of it to keep it open?
I mean, it's an interesting point. Reform UK voted, and surprisingly in many ways, for the nationalisation of British Steel.
Yes, well, I think because it's such a mess, we've got to nationalise it, but let's do it properly. Let's do it rather than get worried about our relationship with the Chinese and upsetting them by not taking it over properly now. The way this is
Were
not
you surprised that we didn't vote on nationalisation at the point?
Yes,
so am I.
Was surprised. I thought we should have done. I thought that's what they were actually convening to do. And whilst it's very unpalatable, and I'm not in favour generally of nationalisation, although I think building societies should be nationalised, apart from that, it's a mess. It's still a mess. They haven't resolved it.
And also, I mentioned this yesterday, Richard Tice found out that British steel executives admitted the UK coal could fuel the blast furnaces, and yet we've got mad Ed Miliband and his zealotry for net zero not allowing this new mine to open in Whitehaven. If you were going to do this, let's do it properly. You use British coal, we fuel the steelworks, we then produce virgin steel, we have some reliance of our own, and actually we need to start rethinking about security, energy security, about security of construction in this country.
Yeah, they haven't got a plan, a real plan. They don't know what they're doing. This is the problem with this government. Everywhere you look, they don't know what they're doing. And as for the poor people living in Birmingham, they're living in a major health hazard
They
now,
really are.
with the 28 ministers who, of course, are members of Unite, who they're negotiating with.
It's a great point, isn't it, Mike? You've got all these ministers, members of Unite, that are paying for the strikes, or they're part of the organisation that is causing these strikes. You've got rats the size of dogs wandering the streets. There is a huge public health crisis. It's unacceptable.
Well, as someone who's grown up in the West Midlands and knows Birmingham well, it's heartbreaking to see what's happened to the largest local authority in the country. And it's hard, as someone who remembers and knows Labour Party history as well as I do, not to draw comparisons between that and the winter of discontent. You know,
I was there.
The long periods of just public services failing. And look, the connections, to say that Unite is not an asset to the Labour Party would be an understatement. You know, Sharon Graham is at the best of times a pain to Keir Starmer's government, and I don't think that, whilst I'm fully supportive of better terms and conditions for every form of work, particularly those people that have to do some of the dirtiest and most demeaning jobs in our society. I think cleaning other people's rubbish is not a particularly nice job that anyone wants to do. You cannot say that it's in the interest of the workers or the population to let this have gone on as long as it has done. And if the government cannot, and this means both the City Council, the Mayor, and, of course, the Labour government, all of which are Labour, can't address this, then people in Birmingham will start to rightly look elsewhere to other political parties, or indeed not voting at all, because a basic public service is broken down. That's the pact that elected politicians make. We make your public services work if you trust us. At the moment, that is not being delivered.
We'll carry that conversation on after the break. I want to talk about the electoral chances. I have to stay away from local mayoral elections because we're in Purda before the elections, which are in under 2 weeks, actually. We'll continue this conversation after the break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Well, good evening. I can't decide whether this new announced policy is either cynical or naive. But I don't think it will work. What it will do is it will essentially legalise illegal crossings into the United Kingdom across the English Channel. And if Labour manage to get an agreement with the French on this, we'll see small boat numbers reduce.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk 8:53, Saturday, April the 19th. Let's move on and talk about this, the latest political polls, which I mentioned yesterday. This is Find Out Now poll. That we are seeing enormous shifts taking place in terms of the voting intention of the public. Of course, the general election is still some time away. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg. He said on a different channel, he said it's time to give the people what they want. A Tory reform non-aggression pact, arguing that Labour won its majority because the right-leaning vote was split between Reform and his party, the Conservatives. The context of a recent YouGov poll of 2,500 adults on how people would vote. Now, the latest has Reform out in the lead at 28%. Is that the answer, Mike and Dean?
I'll be honest, I don't think so. The fact is that the Conservatives won elections, 4 elections over the last years with a strong presence of Reform at 2 of those, particularly in 2015 when David Cameron secured his surprise majority as well. Now, what is more concerning, I think, is if we look at the movement of voters, is the fact that more and more people are shifting away from voting at all to not voting. And the fact was demonstrated by the fact we had less than 60% turnout.
I'm not sure that's true in the... Well, I have to be careful what I'm saying, but I have a feeling turnout might be much higher.
Well, turnout in local elections is always very low. It's always about 20%,
but
if on a good day.
Hasn't the mood shifted so much and people are so angry that actually I think that people may well turn out?
I don't think so. I think we need to remember that actually that this government's biggest problem is the fact was 2 things. One, it was elected on a very low percentage of the popular vote compared to the size of the majority, showcasing the fact we have an absurd electoral system. Secondly, the fact that the turnout, despite the fact this was a change election, was the lowest since 2001, which has been contrasted with the certainty that Tony Blair would win a second term.
But Labour didn't get in on policies, did it? It got in because they're not the other lot.
Yeah, I mean, it was a vote against the Conservatives.
Yeah, governments elections.
And people do tend to vote against rather than for in this country, historically. Although on this occasion, I agree with you that I think that people are so angry they're going to come out and make their voice heard, rather like they did voting for Trump against Kamala, which was a huge surprise. By the margin Trump won, I think people are going to be quite surprised, but we'll see what happens. The one thing I do think, though, is that the Reform and Conservative merger will not happen, and the reason for that is that the centre part of the Conservative Party really don't like Reform, and the Cameronistas, who actually are more responsible for woke than even the Labour Party. But they need each other in many ways. But for the first time, the Conservatives have got a real competitor on the right of their side, and that is very new. And don't forget, it's easy to forget the Lib Dems because they have no policies other than going to fun fairs and doing funny stunts.
He loves a stunt, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. But I mean, they do have more seats as a third party than any other party in modern times.
They do, but it also goes back to Mike's point, which is actually when you get 4 million votes, as Reform did in the last election, of 5 members of Parliament, when you skew that, it just shows how
it shows you what an absurd situation it is. But the problem is they need each other to some extent.
Do they?
Well, the Conservatives need a leader like Nigel Farage, who's without doubt the most charismatic.
What about
in the
Kevin
country.
Bacon?
She is a disaster, in my opinion. But what reform needs is a credible party machinery, which the Conservatives still have, even though it's creaking and needs complete resetting, to use a Labour word. But you know, one of Nigel's problems is he's always photographed with his security guards who look like a nightclub bouncers, and it makes him look a little bit too far right in terms of the image that conveys. And what he needs is a credible, decent machinery around him of a party which the Conservatives have a ready-made
well, they've had a head start, haven't they? I mean, they've had hundreds of years.
Exactly.
A couple of hundred years.
And together they would be good. And there's a large number of Conservative voters who would welcome the merger, but equally there's a large number who wouldn't.
And that's the fascinating bit, really, isn't it? The Conservative Party is not one party; it's actually 5 parties, I think. Well, it's an amalgamation of various splinter groups, isn't it?
You could say this for all the main political parties. The fact is that, you know, the Labour Party itself could comprise easily 2 or 3 separate political parties. The Conservatives, Christian Democrats, the Free Marketeers, the Cameroonians. Yeah. This is the issue with coming back to the electoral system, is that our British, like the Republicans and Democrats in the States, the political party umbrellas are now too big to recognise the fact, and that we have, for the first time, you know, in a long time, a large number of political parties inside Parliament. You know, despite the electoral system, the Greens and Reform made gains at the last election too. We need to consider whether or not our election system is an adequate expression of what people can actually expect. And the slightly absurd thing is, the last time this almost broke down was sort of about 100 years ago, 1923, when, you know, the Liberal Party secured, you know, basically it was a 3-way split between Labour, the Liberals and the Conservatives as then, and then it meant Labour could squeak through into government for the first time. This is how reform gets in initially, but at the moment they're still way behind the Conservatives in terms of the structure, but also in terms of Labour, in terms of the position of candidates on the ground as well. Piers is entirely right. They need a credible structure, but they also need to emulate Labour's success at putting their vote in the right place, which is what Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer did very successfully at the last election.
I shall pass the message on, Mike. Thank you, gentlemen, very much indeed. Thank you to Piers Pottinger and Mike Indian for today's Head-to-Head.
Head-to-Head.
Still so much more to come. I'm going to be talking about travel disruption. Of course, it's Easter. We'll get all the latest details from Simon Calder after this break.
We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting his front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich, don't dirty minds away from the ostrich and shouted, "Oh, cripes, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
And one here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. As an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the magpie, which is much bigger, every springtime, the folk in this village need to use the old...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, very good morning to you. Just after 9 o'clock on Saturday, April the 19th. It's Holy Saturday. Happy Easter to you, wherever you are. I've got to stop eating what's left of this Easter egg. Anyway, great news for you this morning. It's National Cat Lady Day today. That's right, it's a day celebrating the bond between humans and felines, particularly women. A cat lady's reputation has gone a long way since medieval Europe, when a woman's love of cats was met with suspicion and disdain.
She's a childless cat lady and she's not alone. A million just like her, she'll bring justice home.
That's very lovely. It's Husband Appreciation Day today, a day to celebrate the man in your life. It's also Humorous Day today. Make of that what you will. Garlic Day as well, a day paying homage to the puncheon bulb that adds flavour and depth to countless dishes around the world. Of course, it's known as the stinking rose. So happy Garlic Day, Stinky Pants.
Garlic's stinky and delicious. Garlic's healthy and nutritious, and it tastes so fine.
I love a bit of garlic. Right, let's move on and start this hour's Fascinating Facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
These are some good ones. On this day in 1883, at a meeting in Liverpool to establish a home for dogs, the proposer, T.F. Agnew, suggested perhaps it should be turned into a home for children, as he had seen the work of the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. On the evening of this day, the Liverpool Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children was formed, and later it became the National Society, or NSPCC. On this day in 1995, the first television advert for football pools was screened in a £1.5 million Littlewoods campaign. The ban on commercials was lifted after the company protested to the government that the National Lottery was hitting their profits. And on this day in 2004, the death of Norris McWhirter, a man of my childhood, of course, the Scottish co-founder, along with Ross McWhirter of the Guinness Book of Records. And those are this hour's Fascinating Facts.
David Bowles' breakfast, oh, what a treat. Gather around, it can't be beat. Wake up your senses, let's celebrate. Easter vibes flowing, it's never too late.
Well, a very good morning to you. 5 minutes past 9 already on Saturday, April the 19th. Hope you're having a really good Easter wherever you are. Now, yesterday, I talked about the travel chaos. 20 million people hit the roads yesterday. I imagine those journey times are not that brilliant. Millions of people set to face disruption to their Easter travel plans this weekend. Not just because of the roads. We've got engineering works. I think various stations in London are closed as well. Possible flooding. We've seen queues at the port of Dover. Also, we talked about this yesterday, but also some changes to the documents that you need. And I promised I would talk to him today. Yesterday he was at sunny Luton Airport. Today I feel he is somewhere rather hotter. Simon Calder, travel correspondent at The Independent, joins me this morning, not from Luton Airport. Simon.
Good morning, David. Good morning, everybody. No, I am in lovely Split in Croatia. Lovely. I tell you what, my flight, after I spoke to you yesterday, obviously they were watching, listening, and thought we better get this one away on time. So turned up early. And look, I don't wish to be at all smug about that, because there will also be people watching and listening at places like Gatwick who are thinking, hang on, my flight's late. And something we discussed yesterday, but let me tell you how it is manifesting itself. This is flights to the southeast from the UK, particularly to places like Croatia, to the Greek islands, to Turkey. There appear to be lots and lots of so-called flow restrictions in place for the number of flights that can get through the airspace. So I'm already seeing delays leaving Gatwick of up to an hour. Nothing wrong with the planes, the pilots are all there, but it's one of those things where you just go and sit on the plane and then they say, we've got to wait. And the worry is, and this was told to me a couple of weeks ago by Michael O'Leary, the boss of Ryanair, that these things just get build up, and then it's horrible for the rest of the weekend. Now, I very much hope that's not the case. And there is a bit of good news at Gatwick. Strikes by members of the Unite union belonging to Red Handling, as far as I can tell, have had zero effect on anybody actually flying. And we have Norwegian, the airline, going off to Bergen, to Oslo, to Copenhagen. They seem to be going on time. TAP Portugal, Lisbon, Porto, those are looking all right. And Air Peace to Lagos, that doesn't seem to be affected either. So I think the handling company has got all the managers in working on their weekend off in order to get people on their holidays. No other airlines affected by that. Unite the Union said Delta wouldn't be handled. Well, Delta doesn't fly from Gatwick, so nothing to worry about there.
OK, good. So also, just in terms of the roads, we talked about this 20 million people on the roads yesterday. I think it's meant to be slightly quieter today, maybe 19 million people.
Yes, today is going to be really busy, middle of the day, where you've got not just people who are heading away to some lovely parts of the UK, but also coming back. And that will be slightly clashing with people who are just doing their normal Saturday stuff, whether that's going to a football match, going shopping, garden centre or whatever. So it is going to be busy in the middle of the day. And once again, if you can either start your journey early or finish late, you will be in a good position. And furthermore, Sunday looks like a really good day to be out on the roads. It's going to get really busy on Monday, and that will be particularly the case, I think, coming back from Calais in northern France. And you can expect delays, I'm afraid, if you're listening in some lovely part of France or Italy or whatever, and you're driving back. Well, be prepared for delays, because you come into Calais port, you've then got the French border control signing you out of France. You've got UK Border Force who are signing you into the UK, and bear in mind also that you can't bring back cheese, or you can't bring back dairy or meat products from the EU anymore at the moment because of worries about foot and mouth. You've never been able since Brexit to take stuff in the other direction, but now you can't bring it in either.
So can we just talk about Eurotunnel? I read this article. I didn't know this. There were new rules brought in about turning up to Eurotunnel with at least an hour before your departure. Now, many people have been caught out because they were caught in traffic jams. They arrived with 45 minutes to go before their Eurotunnel train, and were then hit with the cost of 2 new tickets because they then cancelled both your tickets, the outward and the return.
Yeah, look, normally, if you're travelling, for instance, on the ferries, they're very good. Generally, a couple of hours either way, it doesn't make much difference. And there is a little bit of latitude in Eurotunnel, but because particularly over a busy weekend, they want to make sure that they've got the right number of people on each of those departures. They may well turn around and say, look, we have got a little bit of wriggle room, but you've exceeded it. And I'm afraid, yes, you must read those terms and conditions. But equally, I'll tell you what, that's happening at Folkestone. Just along the coast at Dover, they're saying, please don't turn up too early. Basically, we haven't got room for you. And certainly, if you are caught up in ferry problems coming back because of the delays, it's just a matter of, we missed the ferry you were booked on, but we'll just get you on the next one.
And do we know, is Operation Brock in operation?
Yes, so this is just as they tend to do over any busy time for departures. If you're a truck, you are moved onto part of the M20, and you are just sort of let on bit by bit. The prioritisation is getting people away on their holidays, and it's kind of a weekend thing. And during the week, when there aren't so many families travelling, then the truck drivers can go straight there. But that's very much been in operation since I think since Thursday evening.
Now, Simon, I always look at what you're doing and take inspiration from you. And I worked all over Christmas, I'm working over Easter, and I thought I need to get away. I saw this rather brilliant train journey, La Dolce Vita Orient Express, Italy's first luxury train, intended to create the glamour and carefree spirit of the 1960s. It looks absolutely amazing. What do you know of it?
Okay, so this has just started. It's a venture involving Italian investors and the Orient Express brand, and the idea is that that they will take you into a wonderful, carefree world of kind of 1960s Italy. It's actually a 1970s train. And the great thing is that you get marvellous experiences. So I've been hearing about, for instance, going off and meeting great winemakers and enjoying private wine tastings, which has been lovely. However, I've also heard from somebody, I was speaking to him after your excellent production staff put me onto this. I found somebody who'd been on one, spent £10,000 on a one-night journey.
Whoa!
And was very, very underwhelmed. I mean, even for talk presenters, this is really big league cash.
Listen, a single night itinerary is £2,662 per person. So I looked at it and I thought, no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you are talking ridiculous. You're talking kind of £100 per hour for time, and I mean, people would pay that to spend time with you, David. But yeah, and the other thing is, you're also dragged around parts of. This isn't necessarily a great experience. This chap I was speaking to said that we spent hours on the road, on the railway at night, being dragged around, and woke up in the morning. We were 50 kilometres from where we'd started. So he was cheesed off, but other people, I'm sure, will be absolutely delighted.
Oh, I like the idea of the champagne being served, dinner. I thought that was all rather lovely, but no, not at that price. Also, just talking about prices, I'm seeing they've been slashing airline prices around the world, because it's quite interesting, this Donald Trump effect on airlines, and they can't fill the seats.
Yep, this is absolutely specifically going across Transatlantic, down a bit from the UK, but actually much more from places like Denmark. I was looking, British Airways selling return tickets in August from Copenhagen via Heathrow to New York, £365.
Wow, that's good.
Now, BA say they're not seeing any weakening, and that's just the kind of normal way that they will offer some extra spare seats on those routes. But certainly from the UK, I think we are perhaps later in the year going to see some real deals. A lot of people have, of course, committed to their holiday in Vegas or Florida or California, New York, wherever, and they're not going to be cancelling, but it's a question of whether people will just think, actually, I'll tell you what, I don't really like what's happening in America. I'm not going to go. And more crucially than that, them Canadians aren't really cheesed off at Donald Trump saying, yeah, I'm going to make you the 51st state of the US, and I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to put all these tariffs on. So they are cancelling in droves, which means, because Canada is absolutely the number one nationality going to the US, that means lots of empty hotel rooms, lots of empty rental cars, and indeed they've just started flying, or they're just about to start flying from Montreal to Edinburgh, because flying from Montreal to the US, they simply weren't selling any seats.
How interesting. And often you can get some really good deals, can't you, by flying internally within Europe and then using the long-haul ticket from wherever, from that hub airport to the United States. I've done that for business. I did it with Iberia. So I flew to Madrid, and then the business class ticket was half the price of the ticket from London.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I will typically go. I've been to Vienna, for instance, to fly out from there. Dublin is really good because, first of all, if you get a cheap low-cost flight, 30 quid there, then suddenly your air passenger duty liability drops from £90 to just £13.
Wow.
And that will actually pay for an overnight stay in Dublin. And then the other great thing, have you done this? You get pre-clearance of US border, and that means you go through passports, you go through customs. When you get to the US, you are a domestic passenger. You're free to go, and none of this lining up for 2 hours.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's like the BA1, isn't it, that flies from City into, I think, into Dublin, and then you do all the customs there, and then you fly back in. Amazing, Simon. Are you on holiday by any chance?
Life is one long holiday, David, yes. But I'm just about to step aboard a boat and drift off for a week.
Wonderful. Look, I hope you have a great holiday. Thank you very much for your amazingly sage advice, as always. Simon Calder there, travel correspondent at The Independent. So hopefully that's helpful if you are going away this Easter. And hopefully, yes, tomorrow the roads are going to be a little quieter than they have been, and particularly today as well. Let's now take some voice notes. This first one is from Jill. This is about Daniel's call. Good morning.
Hi, David. Jill from Northampton. Great show as ever. What a brilliant call from Daniel from Epsom. The passion, the eloquence, the feeling, he echoed everything I think and feel, and he echoed everything that so many people of this country think and feel. What the heck is going on? I don't understand it. I cannot comprehend it. There is no will of this government to stop migration, legal or otherwise. It's almost as though they are encouraging it. There's no will to stop it. If they wanted to stop it, they would stop it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but something must be going on. And I don't think that the British public will put up with it for very much longer. All the best, David. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I would agree with you. I don't think the public will put up with it for much longer. And Nick has also sent a voice note. Good morning, Nick.
Morning, David. I find this obsession with China remarkably sinister. It's terrifying, in fact. Successive governments, Cameron, Johnson, and now Starmer, seem to have been in the thrall of China. Everything we've done in the past 5 years has benefited only China. You go back to the pandemic, PPE, masks, tests. The disease even started in China, for heaven's sake. Why are they in such thrall to China? Why are they obsessed with China? One has to start thinking at some point that somebody is getting their grubby little palms greased by somebody from the East. Have a good Easter.
Yeah, thank you, and to you as well, Nick. We also have a caller on the line. Nicola is on the line from West Sussex. Good morning, Nicola.
Oh, hello, David. New listener. I only listen to you for about a month now, every Saturday and Sunday, so thank you for taking my call.
Oh, no, absolute pleasure. Thanks for ringing.
Oh, it's lovely to talk to you. I really hope that I don't upset anyone, but I'm just going to speak absolute facts. From my own personal perspective, I have a senior role within a shopping centre and town centre.
Yep.
So I see firsthand how our community has changed. There are groups of illegal immigrants allowed to hang around in afternoons and evenings, simply talking in their own language, intimidating groups of up to 8 to 10,
yep,
gawping at young girls.
Yep.
And at that point, I actually thank the Lord that I'm not a mother, especially a mother of young girls. Now, I feel as though my opinions are completely ignored. Even local councillors, which I've gone to tens of times, just do not listen. I'm 48, so same as Daniel earlier. I have a significant disability. I have a paralysed arm.
Right.
I still pay over. I earn a good wage, but I work 72 hours a week for that. I pay over £20,000 into the UK economy, and I have done since the age of 15. So this angers me. When you get the front page of the Express saying that we're not going to fund our elderly folk to go to the graves, but we're paying over 15 billion in public services and hotels for illegals that are just, I'm sorry, they're laughing at us.
Of course they are.
I also have another point to make.
Yeah.
We have a few barbershops in the town. Now, I have myself reported grooming of young schoolgirls hanging around outside at midnight on street corners with groups of Muslim men. Reported it to the police over 10 times, myself and my security team, who I work with. I've seen and got photographic evidence of drug dealing and money laundering.
Wow.
Now, you've got 250 that were raided last week. Oh, no, not the town I'm in. None of them were raided when I have supplied all of this evidence and nothing happens. One other point I'd like to make, believe you me, I'm no Tory lover, but I wrote to David Cameron about my concerns because I no longer felt safe as a UK citizen. And I have every right to feel safe on my streets. Well, that's gone. David Cameron at least wrote back to me. I wrote to Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak sent me a lovely letter back. Right, I have written to Keir Starmer 5 times in the last 8 months. He has not, or his team has not responded to one of my concerns. Now, I am the type of person, along with my that keep this country running because I'm paying taxes, and I can't believe that we are considered. Well, we're just not even. We don't matter. And he was very smart in what he did. Everybody that appeals to this is far right. I'm actually not. I was actually more in the centre, to be honest. But Keir Starmer has made me turn more to the right. He's doing this himself. So he could not even respond about why, a taxpayer that is contributing towards his country, an honest person that's never broken the law, he could not respond to me as to why I feel now unsafe in my own town where I work. And I think that is appalling. And that is a dereliction of duty.
I couldn't agree more.
Sorry to go on, but that's how I feel.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is where everyone feels so disenfranchised, which is you are raising legitimate concerns. You want an answer. You deserve an answer, and you're not getting an answer. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I mentioned I keep going around the country doing various things. I see illegal migrants in town centres doing exactly what you're saying, intimidating young girls, talking in foreign languages, no sense of integration in the slightest. As a result, those local businesses are folding because people feel unsafe, so they don't go and patronise those businesses. The town centres are falling apart and no one seems to care.
Exactly. I could not agree with you more. Okay, so I'll be honest, I run a shopping centre. I'm fully let. I'm probably the only fully let one in the country. But if you look at the high street, vape shops, beauty salons, oh my God, the barbers that are popping up. You don't see any customers all day long, but they all, when they close, you see 4x4 BMWs, Mercedes, Audis, stuff that somebody like me that's worked all my life can't even afford. So come on, this is common sense, but no one's taking any notice of it, and we've just let crime. And I'm sorry, as I say, I don't mean to upset anyone, but the third world now, and we're importing more. So if we already feel unsafe, what is the government? Their first thing of government is to ensure the safety of the British person, right? Well, they have failed on every single level, because I can go down now and talk to people in my town and they go, yes, I feel the same as you, but I'm too frightened about being locked up, so I'm not going to say anything. That is where we've come.
Yeah, and you know what? Yesterday when I was filling in for Ian, we did a whole segment on freedom of speech, and people were saying that they're too worried to actually express freely and openly what they feel about illegal immigration, the pace of immigration into this country. And of course, they're even trying to clamp down on what you say in the pub, which, if you start going down that line, I think is incredibly dangerous indeed. So why doesn't the government listen? That's the bit I don't understand. So they know they've got a problem. You've got 9,000 illegal migrants coming to this country. They're talking the right kind of stuff. They're talking about the UNHCR. They think they're going to get a returns agreement somehow. Whether they do or not, I don't know. Why don't they care?
Right, this is what I'm trying to understand. I don't believe they care about the birth rate and people getting older. I don't believe it's that. Do you know what I honestly think it is? I think they're so scared. Now, I'm a royalist. I did love our royal family. But King Charles, his speech, so 1 minute you've got Catherine doing a beautiful carol service for the victims of Southport.
Yes.
And then next minute you've got King Charles saying, oh, like Islam's peaceful. How dare you insult us like that? He needs to do a bit of market research here, because the people that support the royals are mostly conservative people. And what he's done is he's alienated all of them. And now us lot are pretty damn angry. I don't see William and Kate ever doing something like that. And I know, don't get me wrong, I would love peace, but let's get real. That's not happening. And what are we doing? Importing more. We've got 50,000 on the watch list. I don't know how MI6 are coping with this. And what are we doing? Importing more. Let's just bring in more. So I don't know. I was a Reform voter purely because of how scared I feel about illegal immigration. But since the Rupert Lowe thing, reporting somebody for hurting words, I can't get on board with that anymore. But don't get me wrong, if there was an election tomorrow, I would vote Reform because I think they would stop it. But I don't agree with what they've done with Rupert Lowe. Now, Rupert Lowe is the only one that is going out there and raising funds for a national inquiry, because we still know that Labour MPs, Labour councillors and people in the police covered up these disgusting grooming gangs, and they're still in service. And I'm sorry, Rupert Lowe at the moment, and probably Robert Jenrick. I wish I could just support them rather than a party. They are at the moment my heroes.
Nicola, really good to hear from you. Such a cogent discussion as well, and really well thought out points. Thank you very much for that. Clip that up. This is Louis. This lady speaks so well and is so sincere. I agree totally. David, one of the nicest areas of Sheffield are subject to a protectionist racket by Albanian gangs extorting payments from the businesses there. The police and council know, but they have no interest in stopping this. They'd rather arrest people on X. That's Michelle. Thank you for that. David, please can you replay Daniel's call? Pretty please. I missed it. And yes, I agree with Jill. Something is going on. It is sinister. Yes, we are replaying it in 15 minutes' time, I promise you. So some brilliant calls this morning. Let me just look here. Mike, David, good morning. Simon Calder said the weather tomorrow would be the best time to get out on the road. Thanks, Simon. Now I have to put up with floods of tourists clogging up all the roads heading into North Wales. I will never get off my drive. Keep all those messages coming in, please. Lots more still to come. Not least, we'll replay Daniel's call after this break. Also, we have our entertainment news update with Jeffrey Ingold, who's a journalist. That's all still to come. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
had a rugby injury, and my soon-to-be stepmom offered to massage my legs for me. And to cut a long story short, I'm now in a relationship with my what was stepmom, and I had to break that to my dad, the news to my dad that I was, you know, squaring his wife away.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk 9:33 now on Saturday, April the 19th. I'm David Bull. This is Weekend Breakfast. Thanks very much for your company. So many messages coming in. Winston Smith says, "Hi, David. Nicola from West Sussex has just summed up everything that is wrong with this country and reflects almost everyone I talk with. We have had more than enough, but they seem to just not care. I can see a civil war eventually if it isn't stopped." I agree with you. I actually think this is the tipping point. I'm seeing it around the country, people saying to me this is all they want to talk about. Why is the country changing? It's a country I don't recognise anymore. The fact is, the stream of illegal immigration into this country, we are being put at the back of the queue for social housing or for whatever it is, and that is I think what is going on. This is interesting. I bet they won't allow Daniel or Nicola into the audience of BBC's Question Time. Thanks, Jerry. David, this is Richard Talbot. Why aren't migrants made to work? They're housed in camps, they're made to work in Greece. And of course, as I was talking, the federal ruling in Germany, which of course plays well to Germany, saying that actually if they've claimed asylum in Greece, they need to go back to Greece. Also, David, what time did Daniel call in? I won't be in when you repeat it at 9:45. I can tell you it was 6:40 this morning, that first call. So, Gerald, 6:40. And then I'll do one more. Dave in Portsmouth, good morning to you. The UK has got to be the only country in the world where you can just walk in and get treated better than the people who live here. Something has to be done, and quick. Come on, Starmer & Co. It is not rocket science. It's interesting, isn't it? They just don't want to hear. They don't want to do anything about it. Let's pause, take a breath. It's now time for an entertainment news update. And joining me this morning, Jeffrey Ingold, who's a journalist. Good morning.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great that you are here. We talked about this lady earlier.
Yes.
The blast into space. Katy Perry was amongst those people, including Gayle King, for example. What was your take on that? I mean, the whole thing was overly dramatic, I thought.
But for 11 minutes, it surely has taken up a lot of time. You know, they were only up there for 11 minutes in space. Long. Yeah, exactly. You know, I know things have lasted much longer than that, including many films recently, and we're still talking about it.
Yeah, I know.
And I think at this point, you know, I thought it was silly. I think it was a bit of fun. But ultimately, you know, Katy Perry is still in the news. There's still people talking about she regrets making such a public spectacle of it. Martha Stewart has just come out to make fun of her.
Ooh.
And
she's a big name.
She is a big, particularly in America. And Katy Perry, you know, she's not doing so well with her career at the moment.
Isn't she?
No, she's going on a world tour and the tickets are not selling very much. So she's obviously trying to promote herself.
But she kissed a daisy. She kissed the rock.
Yeah.
She sang.
And would that make you go see her concert?
No, but also, I can't think of anything worse than being trapped in a capsule with Katy Perry caterwauling at me.
Yeah, singing Louis Armstrong, you know, I think I would hit the ejector button and you'd never see me again.
So that's quite interesting. So anything else on... So Katy Perry generally not doing well, because she was at the sort of peak of her career, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, Katy Perry was the hot
10
banana.
years ago, everything she touched turned to gold, and now it seems like she has to go into space for people to talk about her. And so I just think, I feel a bit bad for her, and I almost feel like we just need to stop, we just need to let her have a week off, you know, just like let her rest.
I never liked her songs.
Did you not?
No.
Teenage Dream?
Nah.
Oh, that's like like candy floss pop music.
There's
It's
a
perfect.
dreadful one where she just screeches a lot.
Well, that's maybe some of her earlier or later work, you know.
Okay, let's talk about Robbie Williams.
Yes. Poor Robbie Williams.
Why? What's happened?
So he had posted on his Instagram yesterday, and he was saying he was on a flight, he was very tired, and he had 3 different people asking him for a picture.
Right.
And he posted on Instagram sort of saying, you know, it's really hard to be a celebrity when you feel like you've, you know, and he's grown up at a time before social media, you know, Take That was not famous at a time when everyone had a smartphone, and now you just constantly have people asking you for your picture. And he's sort of saying, it's exhausting, it causes me anxiety when people come up and talk to me, and it's really, you know, do you say yes, do you say no? Like, he's like, I looked bad, I'd had, you know, 2 hours of sleep, I'd had 4 kids I was getting onto an airplane, and like, I don't look very good. And most people are probably just asking because they recognize you're famous. And he's like, they probably never bought a ticket to my show. And I think it's part of a wider conversation about how, you know, celebrities feel like they have to give people 24/7 access to them. And that must be really hard. You know, I have this dilemma, and I'm sure you've seen celebrities sometimes, and you're like, do I go up and ask them for a picture? Do I not?
Yeah.
And I tend to think, if they're not working, then I shouldn't really...
Yeah, but that's because you're nice. I have to go to a break. You are nice. I have to go to a break. I just want to carry that conversation on after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:40, I'm in conversation with Jeffrey Ingold, journalist. He's telling me all the gossip that's going on. Right, so we talked about Robbie Williams and being embarrassed and not looking good and all the rest of it. Beyonce, now, is she popular?
I think she's still massively popular, huge American singer, but she's about to embark on a world tour for Cowboy Carter, and the tickets are so expensive that some...
Like how much?
I saw tickets for £600 in London to sit. Not even like a front row standing ticket. I saw tickets for £600. The farthest away seats in the Hotspur Stadium, the Tottenham Stadium, £200 when you were trying to buy them when the tickets went on sale. And that's because Ticketmaster has a process when the concert seems like it's going to be really busy, they increase the prices.
Dynamic pricing.
And now what's happening is some of the shows are not sold out, so they're reducing the price.
Right.
So the fans who paid a load of money are really annoyed.
Of course they are.
Because they're like, well, why did I pay hundreds of pounds and now you're selling that ticket for £50? So, you know, Beyonce will probably sell out her shows, but fans are not happy about it.
I mean, I do wonder if there's a case for a regulator here in terms of ticket pricing, because it just seems that it's just greed.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the problem is artists agree to dynamic pricing. And so they say, yes, you can do this. And so we definitely need some intervention, whether from the government or a regulator, to say, you need to stop this because people don't have the money to, like, who's spending £600 on a concert?
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's not fine if it's one of you, but if you've got a family, you can't possibly afford that kind of money.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's Beyonce. Colin Farrell?
Yeah, so Colin Farrell, he's recently admitted he has a son who has Angelman syndrome, which is a rare genetic disorder.
Yeah.
And he's talked about that, him and his wife are still alive, but they've talked about it's really hard to care for his son, and they've made the tough decision to put the son into long-term care.
Oh my
Because,
goodness.
Colin Farrell was saying, if something happens to me and something happens to my wife, right now there's no safety net for the child, and we don't know where he might end up. So they've made the tough decision to put the child into care.
Gosh, that's really sad. And people with Angelman syndrome get severe intellectual disability, developmental disability. They normally characteristically have a small head as well. And, the life chances for that child are going to be really pretty.
Really low. And, Colin Farrell recently talked about his son was only recently able to walk towards him, and showed this emotional video of him crying because it was such a huge moment where, most parents get to have that so much earlier on.
Of course.
And so, yeah, he's really worried about what happens with his kid long term.
I'm sure. Let's just look at the front page of The Sun. I saw this. The Beckham family, all together, apart from they then had to insert Brooklyn. He's not there.
Brooklyn is not there. So there's been an ongoing sort of...
what's going on?
Apparently there's a feud between Brooklyn and Romeo, who are the two oldest sons of Posh Spice.
Doesn't Romeo look like David?
He does. It's wild.
It's like Mini-Me.
The genes in that family are
good.
they've all done well,
Yeah, they have.
But apparently there's a rift between Romeo and Brooklyn, partly to do with Romeo's new girlfriend.
It's to do with the women, isn't it?
Yeah, and they seem to not be getting along. And what's interesting is this is a family that is often, publicly showing how much they love each other. Victoria and David are always posting about themselves and the family on Instagram. And so it's noticeable now when Brooklyn's not there. Romeo posted a picture of, family really matters, and Brooklyn wasn't tagged in the picture. And so it's interesting to see this family, and, it was just Victoria's birthday. Brooklyn's not there. She's celebrating her 51st birthday. Brooklyn's nowhere to be seen. And so, I know in my family, if I didn't show up for my mum's birthday, either there's civil war happening, or
you lose your life.
I'm not in the will anymore, And I'm sure these kids want to be in the will.
I'm sure they do. Just very quickly, if we may, sexiest man, Piers Morgan.
Allegedly, the British public say Piers Morgan, Jeremy Clarkson was the sexiest man for the last 2 years, and Piers Morgan has come out on top this year.
What makes Piers Morgan the sexiest man?
I couldn't tell you. I did not participate in this poll. I wouldn't have voted for him.
Would you have agreed with that?
He wouldn't be on my list, personally. I think Jonathan Bailey maybe tops my list of sexiest British men. But, if the people choose Piers Morgan, who am I to disagree with the people?
OK, and very well, quiet. I'm now struggling with that. I know Piers very well, obviously. And then Elton John?
Yes, so Elton John tonight on ITV. He's got an evening with himself and Brandy Carlisle. They've just released an album. Dan Levy, the creator of Schitt's Creek, is sort of interviewing them. Hour-long special, singing songs from the new album and classics. It's meant to be a lovely show, so I think, if people have nothing to watch tonight, it'd be a wonderful way to bring about Easter Sunday.
Well said. Absolutely brilliant, Jeffrey. Really good of you to come in. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Jeffrey Ingold there, journalist. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
So a couple of years ago, some people did some work, and there was a smidgen of a hint that DMS might be there. This new work is saying there is, I think, as you said at the start, something like 99.7% chance of that DMS being there. The reason everyone gets very excited about DMS is because on Earth, DMS is only exists because it's breathed out by living things. Whether that is the case on this planet, I think that still remains to be seen. But it's looking, there are increasing hints that this very important chemical does exist.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Final part of Weekend Breakfast, 9:47, Saturday, April the 19th. We just heard from Jeffrey Ingold talking about Beyonce. Hi, David. Great show. Thank you. This is Joe in Norfolk. Well, let's see if Rachel Reeves and Starmer get freebies for Beyonce. Well, absolutely. Now, Maggie says, please will you play Daniel's call again as we missed it. Look, I promised that I would play it at 9:45. It's now 9:48. I'm 3 minutes out. Here, just so that you know, I had a caller earlier. His name is Daniel. It was an amazingly passionate, articulate, well-summarised call. So here you are. Daniel is on the line from Epsom. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning. Do you know what, David? As time's gone on, and I kind of agree with your guest more and more. I'm the last person that would ever be a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, really. I agree.
But I've got my own business. I'm a working class boy from SE21 London. Sort of done well. Got 3 young kids. I'm not the kind of person that buys into conspiracy theories. But at some point, you have to stop and go, right, where's the democracy? If the majority of British Britons in Britain today don't want and have never wanted mass immigration from the third world, we can basically, I'm from London, right? And we can basically see before our eyes the decline and degradation that third world immigration brings, okay? Yeah, it doesn't matter really now whether you're on the left or on the right. Those people that were on the left 15, 20 years ago that would call me a racist and a Little Englander are now having their phones stolen, they're getting sexually harassed and beaten up in London and our towns and cities, and they're kind of coming around to our way of thinking. The reality is, there are now over 50,000 people on the Islamic terror watch list.
Yeah.
Now, in 1995, that number was 0. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of immigration you have from the Islamic third world and subsequent terrorism. We've imported FGM, honour killing, sham marriage, suicide bombing, the full vow, grooming gangs, lone wolf attacks. We've got violent gangs all over our towns and cities. That when I was a boy, I'm 48, right? When I was a boy, I grew up in London in SE21, down Croxted Road, if anyone knows it, near Brockwell Park.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was a lot safer, right?
I would agree.
Now the big change has been mass immigration from the third world. Now, most people can see it destroying the fabric of our country, and Europe for that matter, but I'm mainly concerned with this country. Most of us can see that it's ruining the country and destroying the fabric of our country, okay? And the thing is, we told successive governments now for 25, 30 years, we voted for it, we've given them explicit instructions. Now, David, they work for us, okay?
Yeah, we pay their wages.
Yeah, they work for us. If the majority of British people are saying, look, we don't want it, we've never wanted it, it's ruining our country, you need to stop illegal immigration, you need to cut legal immigration down to exceptionally low numbers, but they won't listen, right?
Why don't they listen?
No, but they won't do as they've been told or instructed to because I'm the only thing I can think of is I agree with your guest. They're puppets. There's someone else with their hands up their jacksie telling them what they can and can't do. Why can't we have a diplomatic incident with France?
Well, we can.
Why can't we just say no? The British public don't want them. It's destroying the country. It's costing us tens of billions of pounds. I mean, why would you take my money? I'm a higher rate taxpayer. Why would you take my money, right, and not use it for the things I want you to use it for, but instead pay for someone to have driving lessons, a mobile phone, a nice warm hotel, whilst our own pensioners freeze? That to me shows me that white British people in Britain are at the bottom of the list. And furthermore, I grew up in SE21 on an estate, a council estate, right, with lots and lots of young black guys that are still my friends. We keep in touch. Now, the big problem that the current successive governments are going to have is those second and third generation people that came here for a better life. I think the Labour Party think because you're black and from London that your eyes don't work, that you can't also see the decline and degradation that we see. And I think what they're doing is they're ensuring that Reform are going to get tens of millions of votes because people don't want it. They've never wanted it. We can see the around their eyes. I mean, I've got 3 young children. I can't let them go into London for the day.
No.
You know, I can't let them do the things that I would have done because it's worse. Yeah, and the thing is, if the government, or successive governments work for us, why don't they do the things we told them to do? Why aren't they? Why? I mean, for example, we've currently got about.
Is it because? Sorry, let me just ask you: is it because they don't care, or is it because they're incompetent?
I think both of those. Plus, I think there's other forces and powers at play.
Like what?
If I worked for you, David, and you gave me explicit instructions to do something, and then I didn't do it. You know, I would, and this is what's been happening. I can't explain why successive governments won't do what we've asked. I mean, for example, all the MPs were being harassed, you know, and they were getting threats, and they're starting to see and feel the way that we are. They're not blind. They can see the decline as well. I mean, the thing is, David, you've currently got 72 million people in the country, right, trying to use an infrastructure that's fit for about 50 million people. It's basically why nothing is working.
No.
Okay? Now, people like me feel justified. I'm stood there going, well, look, the reason it's not working is because you've got over a quarter of the population added since I was in my late teens.
Well, we've gone up 10 million, but it all goes back to Tony Blair, doesn't it? Opening the borders and allowing people into this country. As you say, there is no infrastructure at all. But just in terms of that, people are so angry now about the levels of immigration, and yet the politicians don't listen. It's interesting. Now we're starting to hear the Labour Party saying, well, maybe, and this is Yvette Cooper saying, maybe we should stop them using Article 8 of the ECHR. No, Yvette, we need to leave the ECHR.
Yeah, I mean, something drastic needs to happen. I mean, this is not a new problem.
No.
People have been warning about this for a long, long time. You can see this coming.
OK, so what do you want to see? Sorry, because time is tight. Just what do you want to see happen?
I would like to see some real tough government.
Like what?
I'd like people to come in. I'd like us to stop immigration for about a decade.
Legal and illegal.
Yeah, everything. Listen, man, we just said. You've probably got 10 to 20 million more people trying to use an infrastructure that's not fitted out for it. Meanwhile, who loses it? Who loses out? People like me that have put tons and tons of money into the system. You know, my grandparents, I mean, I'm having to support them with my own money because our government's just completely put them on the back burner, right? And I'm just saying, people like myself that would have considered myself a proud Briton living in this country, I look around now and I'm disgusted at what I see, and I look at the governing classes and I just think, why are you doing this to us? Why won't you listen? You know, why won't you do as you've been told? And I agree with your guest. There's something sinister behind it. There has to be. Why? Because the MP's children must be getting their phones stolen.
So I think the answer is very complex, but there is definitely a disconnect between the London bubble, the Westminster bubble, and what is going on out in the rest of England. I was up near Liverpool this week. I have never seen such anger and over the disconnect, but also just saying, look, these are the problems. We go to the supermarket, the prices are too high, we have far too many illegal migrants. I can't get my kids on the housing ladder because they simply aren't there. Asylum seekers take priority. I can't see a GP. So all of this is linked.
Yeah, well, it is linked. And people like me, right, that were from London, listen, I've got a few quid. I moved out, right? I didn't. Most of the old London families like mine moved out a long time ago. We don't want to live there no more. But it's happening even more. Yeah. I've got a friend in a state agency down in Tunbridge Wells. Record numbers of people. Everyone's getting out of London.
Well, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. There's a really good article saying London risks becoming an ageing city because young people are leaving.
Listen, David, if you're going to meet a girl like I did, you're going to have children, and you want to sort of buy a house and sort of do the normal things, you ain't going to do it in London anymore. No. You can't have kids in London anymore unless you have private education and you get cars.
Oh, you can't because the Labour government have put VAT on it to make it even more difficult.
Yeah, but well, this is what I'm saying. You can't. What was normal for my parents and my grandparents. I can't. I mean, I'm doing well in life, David, and I'm not willing to go into London anymore or any big town and city because, number one, I'm a minority in my own town and city, and it's just dangerous. It's awful. It's dirty. You know, even out here where I'm now. Sort of in Epsom, there's a hotel round the corner, jam-packed full of young males from the third world. Yep. Again, I didn't want them here. The majority of Britons didn't want them here. Why am I paying for them?
And it's a very good point. Daniel, thank you so much. That's a brilliant call to kick off the show this morning. That's Daniel there in Epsom. That was the call I had with Daniel earlier on. So many messages about that interview. This is Barry. I agree with Daniel's call. No point in relying on the King or the government. There is only one power that can sort out this shambles, and that is the patriotic British people. Great call, this one says. I agree entirely. David from Epsom this is all in capital letters, is absolutely spot on. What a great spokesperson for us working class. Well said, Daniel. You spoke for the entire nation. So where do we go from here? Our blood is boiling now. We won't take any more of this. David, put the Daniels call on the website. I will forward it to my MP. Thanks, Maggie. David, please send Daniel's message to number 10 Downing Street. That's Sheila in Norfolk. One more. Wow, what a call from Daniel. Kaz from Staffordshire and Sophia